OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's bang on 7:30. It is Monday morning. It's Ger and Nathan with you all the way through until 10 this morning. It's Kerry's world and we're just living in it, Nathan. That's how it works.
Where's Owen Sheehan, Ger? Where is Owen Sheehan? I'll tell you where he is. Outside D2 getting his photo with Sam Maguire at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Where's his journalistic integrity? You're not going to get any from him on this show all this week.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There
It's
you
a
go.
disgrace.
That's the brother and the dad and Owen Sheehan with Sam Maguire looking pretty happy with life.
4 hours ago.
Yeah, so what is that? It's 4:30. There you go.
We were laughing at the time, but he had his 20 quid ticket for D2 good and early.
Like
So he was
last
front
week.
row.
Right. Or how does it work? I actually was wondering where it was, but then obviously that's where it was. It looked like there were a lot of people there.
I suspect there was, because they were in a very crammed hotel. I know we're going to go live to the team hotel a little bit later, but on the Sunday game last night when I went over, it was Limerick seemed to be in a far bigger hotel. Certainly a bigger room in the hotel last week, where there was a little bit of social distancing allowed. The Kerry lads were properly crammed in together.
Social distancing, so 2020, Nathan.
Ah.
All that stuff's over, right?
We're done with that.
What did you make?
Brilliant. Really good, entertaining game. Galway and Shane Walsh, oh my God. Like the point he scored midway through the first half, where he's running down the left wing, picks it up on the run, cuts back in his right foot, and straight over the black spot from a mile out. And you just thought at that stage, maybe, Galway are going to kick on here. But from 15 minutes to go, it felt very flat. Like Jack O'Connor, big decisions, takes off his two most experienced players at half-time, goes for the jugular, and yeah, Kerry, I think, fully deserved the victory. In the end, you just wanted Galway to have one final push, but probably the key players in that last 10 minutes just couldn't impose themselves at all. And can you win an All-Ireland when one of your two stars barely gets a touch on the ball for an hour of the game? Probably not.
Their inability to get Comer into the game when he was clearly struggling, or they were struggling to get him into the game, that's going to haunt them, because he gives them something that they don't otherwise have. I think, was Conroy injured? I'm not sure, because he just didn't have the impact of the game. There was a few opportunities in the first half for him to kick a booming point, and he didn't take it. And you thought that some of those scores might have been inspirational and they might have had an impact. But also, Kerry managed the game in the second half really well, even though they were clearly very nervous and really feeling the pressure. So that's the bit. Afterwards, the general consensus was this is not going to be a team that goes on to dominate. But actually, it wasn't. You never really thought when Cluxton kicked that score, for example, to get Dublin over the line first, oh, this is a team that's primed to dominate. The domination comes over a period of time as players get better and better, and there's a lot of room for growth in that Kerry team. If they were controlled in the first half, instead of kicking 7 wides, they could have kicked 5 points, and then there would have been a 5-point lead at half time. Everybody would have gone, or 4-point lead. Everybody would have gone, that's about right on the balance of play. But everything went right for Galway, with the exception of getting Comer into the game, and maybe Killian McDade's eventual injury, which kind of took a little bit of the zip from his legs in the final few minutes. I don't know.
Listen, maybe they do, but I think we sat here this day last year and you felt that maybe Tyrone were going to go on and do something special over the next 3 or 4 years, and we saw how flat that was. Now, the history of Tyrone is very different from the history of Kerry, but
Kerry
they did kick 7-8 wides in that first half.
Yeah, but Kerry have Clifford.
They do have Clifford. But
Clifford came through at the same time as Sean O'Shea, and they're now just becoming men, right? And that team also won 4 minors in a row, and that production line is starting to bear fruits as well. So that, I think, is a completely different scenario from last year with Tyrone, who you kind of felt came from nowhere a little bit.
You didn't feel that last year. Last year you were predicting they would win 3 or 4 over the next decade.
I did not.
You absolutely did.
And I still think Tyrone are going to be contenders next year. I think that they had a down year this year. But you can definitely see that this Kerry team is set up in a way that other recent All-Ireland winners, that Donegal team did not look like they were going to win 3 or 4.
Absolutely. Like you would expect. And again, the history of Kerry is that they will go and they will win many more All-Irelands. Will they win 3, 4 in a row? I don't know if they're that far ahead of everybody else. It does feel like a pretty exciting time in Gaelic football, that there's a lot of teams pretty close together. But, as you say, Kerry have the stardust because they have Clifford, who, it felt yesterday, almost effortlessly just kicks 7-8 points, and some of the best points you will see at Croke Park when his team needed them, when other players weren't stepping up, when Gady was really struggling, when Sean O'Shea struggled to get into the game for large parts of it. Like, he was the guy in the first half that kept the points taken over. And did he get man of the match?
I don't know.
By the time man of the match was awarded last night.
I don't know. Someone will tell us. Should Shane Walsh not have got man of the match?
Possibly, but again, the last 10 minutes is a 70-minute game, Ger.
Clifford got it, yeah.
Clifford got it. Clifford was always going to get it.
He's Footballer of the Year now as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like the other contenders. Like Thomas Sullivan probably went into the game as a contender for Footballer of the Year.
He did.
And ends the game not even getting an All-Star.
So, you got to... I don't know. I did still think that... being a little bit churlish here, like David Clifford, all-time great, plays really well. But I do still think Shane Walsh was man of the match in that game. Because, it wasn't entirely... It wasn't just him, but Clifford had a better supporting cast.
Well, Kerry are built around Clifford, so you expect that from him, where Shane Walsh, we went into that not quite knowing. And in a way it's a coming of age, but he's 29, so unfortunately we thought this was maybe going to come 5-6 years ago. He didn't have the supporting cast around him then, and they were obviously struggling in Connacht at the time against a great Mayo side. But you just wish that actually Shane Walsh would get 3 or 4 more years of this. And maybe we do. But it also feels as though there's a very good chance that performance is one we're talking about in 10, 20 years, is that one day that Galway and Shane Walsh turned up in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah. One of the great All-Ireland final performances in defeat. Somebody brought up Peter Canavan a little bit earlier on, and that's a fair shout.
Well, I think it was statistically as well. Obviously, Canavan as well, I think, kicked 11 points that day. And you'd be glad to know Killian O'Connor kicked 10 points on a couple of occasions. Didn't quite get the medal.
Yeah, Killian, obviously, great footballer, heavy scorer, kicks frees. Never had a performance from play like Shane Walsh.
You're right. I don't think too many players ever have had a performance from play with the quality of points been scored. It reminded a little bit of Paul Mannion in the semi-final a few years ago against Mayo, where he's kicking points off the right, kicking points off the left, and he was just on it. He decided he was going to bring this Galway team with him, and it was such a shame that they couldn't get Comer involved, and I was sat pretty much right behind Pádraig Joyce. And again, you read a lot into things you don't quite understand, but Damien Comer did seem to be looking over to the sideline a lot during the second half when he was stuck in it full forward, and eventually the call came to drop a bit deeper, but by then Kerry were able to sit back and were almost happy to let him have the ball out in the 45, knowing that there's no way he's going to run through 10 players. So yeah, Walsh couldn't do it all on his own. Finnerty didn't have his strongest game, Kelly didn't have his strongest game, so if it wasn't Shane Walsh, it didn't feel like it was going to be anybody else, with the exception of Killian McDade, who probably also had a bit of a spell where he dipped during the game, and that's when Kerry just ran riot. Yeah,
bringing Conroy off, McDade definitely picked up an injury and seemed to be kind of holding it for a few minutes, and then still was able to show for it again. So he's emerged as a proper leader for them, and he's not going to go anywhere for the next while as well. So plenty for Galway to be positive about. If you are a Galway fan, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. Shifty Lad says, lads, you got to get Comer in the game, corner forward, wing forward, somewhere. Full forward wasted on him yesterday to not have a shot. Shane Walsh was just amazing. Jerry Lynch says, a fascinating game of football. From a neutral perspective, it was just brilliant. Kerry's depth kicked into a great team. Clifford deserved man of the match for me for being on the winning team. I mean, we're picking nits here.
Well, this is the problem with Clifford. Are we just going to give him man of the match in every All-Ireland final for the next 10 years? We probably could.
Potentially. Bobby Dwyer says, surely the GAA Championships are over now. On to the real football with the Premier League back in less than 2 weeks. Bobby Dwyer, of course, is our resident Spurs fan who I bumped into on the street on Friday night. Or was it maybe Saturday? And yeah, hello Bobby.
I had a low moment yesterday, Ger.
Nice
a
to
low
meet you.
moment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew, obviously, with Kerry and Galway in an All-Ireland final, it was always going to be a bad day. But I was walking out of Croke Park, minding my own business with some happy Kerry fans. One of the problems with Kerry winning an All-Ireland compared to winning Galway winning is with Galway you get joy and absolute jubilation, whereas Kerry, they're kind of happy and they're thinking, I probably will go to work tomorrow. So he said, what do you think of that, Ger? I was like, sorry. Who's he talking to? What do you think, Ger? Whoa.
You got a face for radio, Nathan. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is time for, well, before we get into it, every week we do this, right? And every week I butchered the intro. For an effortless finish to your day, every week we're giving away Gillette Labs shaving kit. To be with a chance of winning, just let us know who you think should make the performance rankings. The best place to enter is the Off the Ball Instagram page. You'll see the comment box in our story.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
We didn't even mention the golf, Nathan. You know, it's we're all a jubilant Irish golfing population after Darren Clarke's success. Does this mean he's good enough now to get invited to join the Live Tour?
Word was that Darren Clarke turned down the opportunity to play on the Live Tour. I would have said man number one straight in, but maybe I underestimated Darren Clarke. So do you want to start on Ryder Cup captaincy / golf, or do you want to start in Galway in the red?
Yeah, let's start with Galway, as is the order.
Well, you lose an All-Ireland final, you're going to end up in the red. Did they not have the depth of Kerry, or were Kerry just more clinical in their substitutions, like to take off their two most experienced players in Paul Ganey and David Moore at half time?
I think you're over-egging the substitutions. Like David Moore apparently had been sick and was not good in the first half, and Paul Ganey wasn't good in the first half, and so what are you going to do? Like, they picked those players. Those players could have been dropped in advance of the game. Like, they had no choice.
You still got to do it. These are experienced players, and I was listening to John Fogarty and Colm Keys on with Steve-O yesterday ahead of the game, and both of them were talking about Jack O'Connor, and one of Jack O'Connor's greatest traits is his in-game management and his ability to spot things and his ability to make these changes. He's done it consistently, and it did feel like Kerry were obviously under huge pressure, though probably relatively satisfied to be only a point behind at half-time, considering the amount of wides they kicked, and they hadn't really played that well, and you felt that Galway had unloaded on them. But it did feel during the second half that Galway were more hesitant in their substitutions, and again there was a lot of conversations going on between Cian O'Neill and Port Joyce, and a lot of looking around and a lot of looking at options as who do we go with. But maybe that is just that strength and depth.
It is, right?
You're taking whoever it is, you're taking a chance and hoping that it's just their day, rather than knowing you have somebody on the bench and exactly what job they're going to do in that situation.
Whereas you know exactly what you're getting from the two Spillans in particular, and there is a case like why didn't they start? You know, so look, I think that Galway can't be too annoyed, right? They're definitely annoyed about the free when the game is a draw game, and their player wins the ball and is coming out, and a handy free is given. You're like, oh, that's a big call. Suddenly we're policing the defender holding the arm of the attacker, and Brian Gavin in his piece in the Examiner today is saying it's a free. The referees have been told to blow this. I'm like, fair enough, but is that the only incident?
Well, that's probably why Port Joyce was frustrated, because even in that passage down in that corner around that time, there was a load of little incidents and a little bit of pushing and shoving, and it was scrappy. And if you don't blow for any of them, referees tend to just let it all go, and whoever comes out with the ball comes out with the ball, because otherwise you give the first one. You get the first little slip and the little push in the back that again isn't really a free because someone's off balance, and it's not that intentional. So to pick up there, and as Port Joyce said, it was a 2-point swing. Like, Galway have all the momentum at the time. The crowd are up.
Big turnover.
It's a big turnover, and you give it to David Clifford, and you know he's going to kick it over the bar every single time. So it was a huge moment, and obviously Galway never score again from there. So it was a big moment, but it did feel that Kerry were probably going to have enough. And listen, Galway in a similar-ish situation to Kilkenny a week ago, where they gave it their all. They left it absolutely all out there, probably. But I think the difference and the big question mark is around Comer and how they couldn't get Comer into the game at any stage.
Yeah. If they were going to win, they needed him to score a goal, really. And ultimately the difference between the teams is 4 points. Now, it's hard to know in those helter-skelter final few minutes. Like, Kerry could have scored a couple of goals, and maybe that's just their experience and game management is not risking the goal and not risking the momentum swing or the confidence that Galway are going to get if they miss it, because the two fisted points in the final 10 minutes are actually both really good goal opportunities. And maybe they score goals. I don't know. Like, maybe if you're a real killer instinct, and maybe next year they'll go for goal for those and they'll score those goals, and it's like a 18 to 16 points. We're like, well, that seems like a fair reflection of the performance. So I don't think Galway can have too many complaints.
No, there's the Conor Gleeson incident as well, when the Galway goalkeeper comes out and fouls, and could he have been black carded for that? Quite possibly. So there was. When the game is level and it's that tight and it's that late, and obviously everything after that goes in Kerry's favour, it's totally understandable. I think the poor choice would look at it isolated and say that was the swing in the game that pushed it towards Kerry. But it did feel as though they were a stronger side. Like, where Galway go from here, they came an incredibly tough route to the final through Connacht. It'll be a similarly tough route next year. Comer's going to be 29 by next year's championship. Walsh is already 29. It did feel as if this was their time.
Well, we've already said Kerry are going to win the All-Ireland next year, so, like, what's the... No point in anybody showing up, right?
The Dubs will be back.
Mark Dunning says, does Jason Foley not deserve some credit for Comer not getting into the game? He does, yeah, he does. There had been some rumours that he might have been injured in the build-up, and then obviously did not perform like somebody who was injured. Kenny the Dad says, Galway a breath of fresh air in the championship this year. They were never mentioned as contenders by any of you throughout the year. That's not actually true. As soon as Colin Boyle came on and talked to us about the impact that the backroom team changes might have had, we were all like, oh, okay, so you're adding in defensive solidity and a plan to their exuberantly talented forward line. At that point we started to take them more seriously, and then Galway in the red, shameful, says Kenny the Dad. Defend yourself there, Nathan from Mayo. Defend yourself. Why are you putting Galway in there?
I don't pick these. Colin Buig picks them, is how I defend myself every single weekend. If you losing All-Ireland finalists, unless you were Kilkenny last week, who managed to get in the amber, I'm fairly sure. I think it's a bit harsh on Galway to be in the red.
What a coward, Colin says in my ear.
That's fair enough.
Prime rib of Mayo bitterness here. The beef is real, says Danny Mac 1. That might be closer to the truth, Danny Mac. So yeah.
No. I just got an interesting meme from a friend of mine, which is, Mel Gibson talking to Jesus.
Yeah.
Galway fans explaining today's hurt to Mayo fans. I was walking in and towards the Hogan stand, and there was a lot of confused Galway fans who were trying to get to the Cusick stand through the route to the Hogan stand, and I was so tempted to make a smart comment about them not knowing the way around Crow Park. And I thought, it's just not the right time. Leaving myself open to a lot of abuse here as a Mayo man.
You were going to mansplain to Galway how to get into the ground, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Right, so Galway are in the red. You feel their pain, and
absolutely,
it is like it was.
Lose
there.
Another 10 and come back to me then, Galway.
It was there for them though. I think that's the heartbreak for them, is that actually they were really in the game and they had an opportunity to push on. And when they got level in the final quarter, they didn't push on. They seemed to go into their shells a little bit. And I don't know if that is inexperience of being at this level, or if it's just them not being good enough, which is also possible. Or
again, maybe it was the way Kerry set up, where suddenly Kerry again put 14 men back behind the ball, just left Clifford up there, and Galway again, Comer drops out, so suddenly there's a lot of Galway players out around the 45, and they seem very happy to just keep ball, but then the couple of shots they had in goal went wide, and you've just spent 3 or 4 minutes with a lot of energy, almost because it's the last 5 minutes of an All-Ireland. There's a bit of panic when you have the ball at that stage, and they lacked that bit of composure, and maybe it was just that bit of energy in the last 10 minutes. But again, I don't think there's any great shame in any way with the way they lost the game yesterday.
No, except that maybe they have unleashed the Kerry wave now, and they will be the new unstoppable juggernaut. We'll see. Right, Ryder Cup captaincy.
Yes. Well, it's not a good time for Team Europe, Ger. Can you believe it? All that unity that has held this great continent together for so many decades in the Ryder Cup and managed to take down the Americans. Well, it's been blown to smithereens, hasn't it, by Henrik Stenson walking out on the Ryder Cup captaincy. In all seriousness, I think this is a huge blow to the Ryder Cup as an event, to Europe, for Stenson to take the gig and then within 3 or 4 months decide, actually, screw that, I'm taking the money from Liv. Did he use the Ryder Cup captaincy as leverage? Quite possibly. Was Henrik Stenson worth 10 million back in February, and then he became Ryder Cup captain, and Henrik Stenson's suddenly worth 50 million?
What period of time do they get the money over? How does this work? Does anybody know?
There seems to be several different thoughts on this. So there was a rumour at one stage that the money you were getting in advance, so say a Charles Schwartzel got 20 million, that any winnings earned were held against that. So you got 20 million, but then Charles Schwartzel won the first event and he got 4 million. But he was getting that anyway, so he doesn't get the 4 million because
he's already got the 20.
Other people have said that that's nonsense. Actually, you get the 20 million
and
up
the
front,
4 million,
and you get the 4 million.
And you get the 20 million up front in one go. Does it arrive like
it is an investment fund? So do they spread it out over the course of 5 years? Because listen, I think you're touching on one of the other big questions about this, as to how long does this last? Because like there's no doubt now, like there is a enormous split in golf that's only going to become greater over the next few months. Once the FedEx Cup is done and there's another bucket load of money won, a load of those players will take that bucket load and then decide, I'm going to go over to live for another bucket load of money. But is this a 3-year project, a 5-year project, a 10-year project, a 50-year project by the Saudi Investment Fund for golf? Or is it a case that in 5 years' time, they go, actually, how are we tricked by Greg Norman? How do we just spend 10 billion on golf? Actually, let's move on to something else. Let's buy the New York Knicks and let's buy Manchester United and let's focus somewhere else.
I don't know if you saw, there was a story in The Guardian, maybe it was on Friday. It was the amount of money that the oil and gas industry have made over the last 50 years. 3 billion a day profit every day for the last 50 years. When you accumulate it, is trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions. So the oil and gas industry has delivered $2.8 billion a day in pure profit for the last 50 years. So ultimately, they could spend a couple of billion on this, and it's really,
And they've already committed to spending a couple of billion on this. But at some stage, surely, somebody asks the question.
No, it doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter because they have so much of it.
Is 20 million in Grey McDowell the best way of spending 20 million for us right now?
No, but it doesn't matter. That's the problem here, is that ultimately they can continue to spend money because they have so much of it, and it becomes devalued as a currency, literally, from their perspective. So you may as well give it away to Charles Schwartzel. I'm just interested in do they make you earn it? Like, what if you kind of take the 20 million and then
back injury?
Very difficult to pin down exactly. One of the C-something vertebrae is just a little bit,
Again, I think this is part of where nobody knows what will happen next, because this year it's an 8-team event, and a lot of the lesser players, the Laurie Cantors of this world, it seems, are tied up to playing 3 or 4 of these events. As part of their contract, they won't be in all 8, which gives them the wiggle room to bring in 3 or 4 big names, new big names for every tournament. But the world rankings are a huge issue. So the biggest problem Liv has at the moment are the world golf rankings. And an awful lot of the players by Augusta next year will have dropped out of the top 50 in the world and won't be eligible. Now, they have players like Sergio Garcia and Dustin Johnson who will get in anyways as former champions. But for a lot of the players, if they don't get over the world rankings issue, like Sergio Garcia will have played his last Open Championship. So, they're accepting that. But there's a feeling that because they own the Asian Tour, maybe the players will go and play in the Asian Tour to keep their world ranking points up. But then you're like, but you just told me you didn't want to play that much golf. You told me the whole reason for going here was because you missed your family.
Yeah,
you wanted to spend more time with them.
But they lied.
But now you're willing to travel around the world. Again, these guys wouldn't leave America for years to play any tournament.
Yeah.
Yet now they want to see the world. So everything that's been said is a load of nonsense. It's all about the money. And you touched on it there, the money doesn't matter, which means even the criticisms, and I get the PGA Tour is not a perfect product in any way, but they're not going up against somebody, the biggest criticism is the amount of ad breaks. The only reason Liv can't have ad breaks, or don't have ad breaks, is, well, firstly, they have no sponsors at the moment, but also they're just throwing obscene amount of money at it, so they don't need to do it. So it's not a fair fight in any way. It's not a realistic fight that the PGA Tour can ever go with. So I don't know how this is going to develop, but for the European Tour, already they've lost Garcia, Poulter, Westwood. And with the way European golf is at the moment, I would have expected that at least 2 of those would have been on the team next year. They've lost their captain as well.
Who's going
and what do they do now? It looks as though they're going to go to one of the old guys. So do they go back to Thomas Bjorn, who by all accounts seemed to do quite a good job at Le Golf National, or do they look for a Paul Lawrie, who a lot of people would feel was maybe overlooked, obviously a major champion, was a big part of the miracle in Medina, and has been a very good European Tour player through the years, but maybe not quite a huge name. But can you get a contract that's so watertight that these guys aren't going to go? Is that your number one reasoning? Who can I trust? So, for example, Thomas Bjorn is, if Live Golf got Thomas Bjorn, well and good. You give him £5 million. But if Thomas Bjorn is the European captain and you're at war with golf, as they seem to be, do you just go to Thomas Bjorn once he gets the captaincy and say, here's 50 million for you?
Yeah.
So what do? Do you hang on till 3 months beforehand before see who's left and make a decision?
Rory McIlroy the
playing captain?
You know, like, and then he picks vice captains, and they're like, vice captain, no, probably not. You're probably not worth 20 million, but like, you know, it's somebody who actually does the job on the course. Is that what happens?
I don't think it doesn't. It's too soon for that, it feels, but like they could well end up in a scenario. And listen, the Ryder Cup, I know it's not important in many ways, but for one weekend of the year, every 2 years, it is the biggest event in golf. Like it draws in the most eyes. It draws in the people who aren't interested in golf for the other 2 years. So to have it damaged like this is disastrous. And also for the European Tour, like they make all the money off the Ryder Cup. So I don't know how it's going to go, but Henrik Stenson, what are you doing?
They're going to have to make a deal. That's what's going to happen. Right. Liverpool transfers are in the amber.
Quiet weekend. Blame Buhig. That's what we should rename this slot. He couldn't come up with anything else for the amber. He wanted to put Shane Walsh, I think, in amber, and I was like, you can't just put Shane Walsh in amber. That's even more nonsensical.
It's not. It's like he should have been in green. He's obviously not going to be happy because his ultimate.
Could we have put Cody in amber?
Well, let's get to that in a moment. Why are Liverpool's transfers? Are they short?
They might well be a little bit short in midfield. When you look at the signings they've made, and obviously Darwin Núñez played one friendly and there was criticisms about his finishing, and then he played another friendly and he scored 4 goals. And it turns out friendlies are a load of nonsense and you can't read anything into them at all.
Are they? Because it looks a little bit like Gabriel Jesus is playing quite well at the moment.
Well, Gabriel Jesus was always going to play well. Gabriel Jesus generally played well for Manchester City. The expectations were different, though, at Manchester City than they will be at Arsenal.
His XG, not good. His performance against XG, not good for
Manchester City.
Yeah.
Jesus, you don't play that often for Manchester City. And also, he didn't always play as a central striker for Manchester City over the last couple of years. Like, they often stuck him out on the wing. But I think Jesus is going to be a brilliant signing for Arsenal, particularly with the 3 players they have just behind whatever 3 they go with Saka and Smith Rowe and Martinelli and Odegaard. Do they still need something in the middle of midfield? Is Zinchenko going to play in the middle of midfield for Arsenal?
Maybe.
If Kieran Tierney is fit, they don't need him at left back. So we saw Zinchenko for Ukraine, just how brilliant he could be there. I think it'd be really interesting for Arsenal if they play him in the middle of midfield. And obviously it was an interesting weekend in friendlies, more for the fallout from that Arsenal-Chelsea game where Thomas Tuchel is throwing his arms up in the air going, like, I'm not getting the players I want. They've obviously lost Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen. It looks as though Azpilicueta and Marcus Alonso are going to go. They've been linked with Jules Koundé from Sevilla for years at this stage, and there's a feeling that may be hijacked. That maybe Barcelona could somehow find the money to sneak in there. Apparently, it's hard to have sympathy for Chelsea. They do seem to be getting away with the Roman Abramovich era and the change of ownership scot-free, and it can, again, still spend as we were questioning their entire existence 4 or 5 months ago. Yet now they're still signing Koulibaly and Raheem Sterling and spending insane amounts of money. They will be just fine. The one question mark about Liverpool, and we're only 5 days away from the Community Shield and seeing Liverpool against Manchester City, and again people will read an awful lot into that. I think it's just in midfield. Like every other area, they've a lot of options, and they do have plenty of options in midfield, but they haven't added anything over the course of this summer. Maybe Harvey Elliott plays in a slightly deeper role. I kind of saw him over the next couple of years maybe been the backup to Salah out on the right-hand side, but maybe he plays in a deeper role. Now, they do still have 3 out of Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, Keita, and Curtis Jones may kick on again this year. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is in there still as well, though. Has he got any great future? But that's the one little area you would look at. I think if City hadn't gone and spent the way they have and bought Erling Haaland and Calvin Phillips and probably Cucurella from Brighton still to come, you would look at Liverpool and think they're well set. But it's just, are they well set to keep pace with City?
Yeah, and City are completely unstoppable when it comes to the league. So maybe they still do need to, if you're a Liverpool fan, you want to make a point to us. We're all ears.
Well, are they, as they've done before, just holding fire for Jude Bellingham and waiting till next summer, knowing that Dortmund, because they sold Haaland, won't sell Bellingham as well this summer?
Yeah, the trouble with that is that, like, you're a further season down the line and you've had another year of Mo Salah, and you want to just make sure that you're at bat, you make as much progress as you possibly can, and that arms race is not going anywhere. All right, so Kerry, champions after 8 years in the green.
Yeah, Jack O'Connor, eh? Jack O'Connor and Kerry. 4th All-Ireland, 3rd spell in charge. Did I see he was the oldest manager of a All-Ireland winning football team?
How old is he?
61.
Did Miko not win? No, I suppose Miko was a young man when he...
This is the thing. Yeah, fully deserving. Obviously went in as strong favourites yesterday, raging hot favourites, and slowish first start, but there was a load of brilliant individual performances, I think, away from David Clifford. Even just in that first half, like the amount of brilliant blocks they got in, the Sean O'Shea block, Stephen O'Brien got a couple of brilliant blocks in, got a right kick up the arse from Paul Conroy for one of them, like putting their body on the line when they needed to. And the way that Shane Walsh just absolutely roasted Tom O'Sullivan. Some of the other defenders you touched on, Jason Foley. We talk about Damien Comer as if it's all on the Galway side that he couldn't get into the game, but Foley was obviously exceptional. And 8 years they sort of feel as a famine down in Kerry. It turns out.
I know, that's why it's hard to have too much joy in this. It's like,
but
to win just once, as the Saw Doctors would sing.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Like defensively, they've just been a revelation this year. I always go back to the semi-final against Mayo from 5 years back, and how they just ripped them to pieces again and again and again. And there's just been massive doubts about that Kerry defence. But O'Connor's come in, conceded 3 goals all year.
Paddy Tally came in.
But Paddy Tally comes in.
Paddy Tally comes in, and it's.
We're allowed to give Jack O'Connor some credit here.
Well, yeah, I'm not giving him credit.
He brought Paddy Tally in.
Yeah, fair enough. But this whole, I'm sick of that Northern crowd. If they're up there set dancing twice a week, we'd all be set dancing twice a week. It turns out you are all set dancing twice a week now. At half time, I'd love to have seen the same game played out between Armagh and Derry, say, and the half-time analysis. If you just put different coloured shirts on those teams, the half-time analysis would have been, oh, look at this.
I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic with that tweet.
Completely sarcastic. 100% sarcastic. Like, I actually really enjoyed the game. I think that there was a period of time where rugby was really good, where the best teams would go up against each other and the game would be in the melting pot right until the end. But then they completely changed the rules, and I don't know, they tinkered with it so much. I fear that they're going to tinker with the rules of Gaelic football, because we're getting really good All-Ireland finals at the moment, where teams who are relatively close in standard are playing out close games, and it's very tense. Like, that's what the Dublin Mayo games were like. Galway probably not at the same level as that Mayo team just yet, but maybe they'll get there. I thought the game was really good. It's just constantly being dismissed when a team plays defensive. It's like, oh, this is an abomination, this shouldn't be allowed, this is crap, why is the game no good, why are they trying to keep possession? It's like, well, because that's how you win games, and the job of the management team and the players is to win these games, and we need to stop looking for aesthetic pleasure.
Well, there's different levels of quality as well. Donegal, the prime example on their journey under Jim McGuinness, that when they figured out the attacking side, suddenly it was absolutely brilliant to watch. Yes, they were very defensive, but both these sides have such attacking talent, even though they went back with, Kerry's case, 14 men behind, Galway 12, 13 men behind, because they had so much attacking talent when they came out with the ball, when they did win it back. I think you can put up with it a whole lot more, and you can't expect every team to have that attacking quality. So a lot of teams, when they're defensive, it's just when it goes up the other end of the pitch, they can't keep hold of it. They can't kick the quality of points that we saw yesterday, and it can be a little bit dour. But was there anything wrong with Kerry's game plan? If they lose yesterday, are we? Because I did feel, when I said to you during the semi-final against Dublin, like, God, if Kerry were to lose this, in the great traditions of Kerry football, to be sitting back against Dublin, and Dublin are clearly better than, with 14 men behind the ball, taking no risk and just leaving David Clifford up there, are we destroying them for that? Or is that actually the best game plan? Well, it turns out it was the best game plan.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they lost an All-Ireland final where they're 4 to 6 point favourites, depending on where you're looking, that would have been a crisis, because they would again have failed to do what they were supposed to be doing. Owen was comparing them to Mayo in the semi-final at various stages, and yesterday again he dug up the previous one. It's like, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. So look, fair play, Kerry champions, and really well set up to dominate for the next while, and they should enjoy this, because they're in a sweet spot now where their best players are of an age where there is still more to come. And was Clifford fully fit this year? I'm not sure. Remember,
is he faking it when he's going around looking shattered after 10 minutes?
I think he's got that Damien Duff ability to just the hands on
Trying
the
to lull
hips.
the defence into a false sense of security.
Yeah, and then he's like flies through the air, literally flying through the air like Superman at one stage in the first half. I think the advanced mark is bollocks. I have
Oh
to
my
say.
God.
It's like a complete waste, right? But when he does it, you're like, maybe you justify this rule just because like you're doing that thing. But like, wouldn't it be much better, more exciting, if he was then trying to do something else?
Well,
you know?
the two yesterday, he probably wouldn't have been able to do a huge amount else. Like, they were, the reason the mark is there, like, he is head and shoulders above everyone with this obscene catch. It was the semi-final against Dublin where there was a mark, and he's isolated one-on-one with the defender, and you're thinking, no. And it was a brilliant Kerry move to get it to him, and he gets around the defender and he smashed this in the back of the net. We're talking about one of the all-time great goals, but I'm sure he's under orders. You got to take the sensible option here. But like the two catches yesterday, I know again you can look at Sean Kelly and say, can you do a bit more? Can you step in front of him? But even the movement, even the movement, he makes 3 or 4 separate little sprints just to get out. And the thing is, when you're sitting in the stand, it's so easy to see where the ball is going. Like the second one, you're thinking there's no way he's getting this. When the ball leaves the foot of the player playing it in, there's no way he's getting anywhere near this. He's about 30 yards away, and the speed of him, it was. Like, we are all guilty already of just taking everything he does for granted.
Yeah. Okay, Brian Cody in green.
Did he announce it on Saturday to overshadow the football final? Is that the peak hurling? That peak hurling people were at?
Well, it was Wednesday that the first
rumours started coming out.
Yeah, at that stage, obviously. I think but David Hardy had said to us that he had heard the previous year that he was going to go, that was going to be his last year, but he kept going, obviously, because he did think there was one chance to stop Limerick, and they nearly did it.
Why now, though? Why now? Yeah, as he looked at Limerick and thought, actually, we gave absolutely everything out there. We played as well as we could, and we still couldn't beat them, and TJ Reid ain't getting any younger. Why now?
Well, because he's had 24 years.
I know. But next year could be the best one yet. Like, another chance to take down Limerick as they're going for 4 in a row. Like, they're going to equal your great Kilkenny team.
Yeah.
Don't let them do that. Henry's going to be back in the dugout again for Galway. Like, you're going to be the main man all year. Surely there's a bit of ego in there.
Yeah, okay. So that's you're paying testimony to him now by saying, why are you walking away?
Don't leave
for?
us now. That's insane. Like 11 All-Irelands, 18 Leinster, 10 National Leagues, just the sheer longevity of it. Malachy Clerkin pointed out in the Irish Times today, he spent 2 days of his life doing post-match interviews. That's at a conservative estimate of 10 minutes per post-match interview. So he's probably spent a lot longer than that. So you can understand why he wants to get the hell out of here. But
I was talking to a Kilkenny man last night who was 48, and he said, literally half my life this man has been, there for all of the big games that I remember. And so when you think about what it actually means to Kilkenny people, the broader kind of context of, like, is he the greatest GA man of all time? More than likely, right? More than likely. And you can make that case. And obviously the unsavoury element with Shefflin this year, people will, I think, get over that in time. And that's not going to be it'll be a little tiny part of his legacy, but you'd have to say that it's an incredible quality of achievement. The one thing is that they had great hurlers, and to be able to get the great hurlers to continue to play for you in the style that he did is really remarkable. And again, it's like that whole style of management, I think, is dissipating. And so there just won't be his likes again. Like, no one's going to be able to do that for that length of time as the demands increase and everything kind of gets bigger and bigger. So, yeah, fair play, Brian Cody, fair play.
You did well, Brian.
Yeah.
You did well.
Right, that's this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Yeah, that was your Gillette Labs performance rankings. OTB AM brought to you live every morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Up next, live in studio with Anthony Moyles, dissecting where the All-Ireland final was won and lost. First, former Kerry star James O'Donoghue talked about the future of this Kingdom side under Jack O'Connor following their huge win yesterday. Back after this.
And there's been such a turnaround of players since we won the All-Ireland last, so these fellas needed this. They needed to kind of validate your Kerry career to win All-Ireland, and the thing is that it's there for them now. The confidence that they can take from this, the David Cliffords, the Paddy Cliffords, there's actually something there now where they can go on and hopefully be in contention for a long time yet, a couple of years, really give it a rattle to kind of set a dynasty. I mean, that's a lot easier said than done. But coming off the back of such starvation, thanks to Dub's success, I mean, Kerry really are trying to push this team forward for success. But I mean, look, it's just a great day for everyone, for the supporters. Everyone is staying back now to celebrate with the team, and it's just a great atmosphere. The only thing I can see is the older fellas have their kids out as well. I hate seeing the older fellas with the kids out because it's like a kind of a retirement strategy. It's like if I bring the kids out onto the field one last time, I might pack it in. So I can see Paul Gainey there with his young lad, and David Bourne as well. So hopefully there's another year in those lads yet.
Yeah, well, they're the two, as well as I was trying to pick out all the players who are over 30. Stephen O'Brien as well. But as you were saying, like the rest of the players there, we're looking at, Graham O'Sullivan 24, Jason Foley 24, O'Sullivan 25, O'Bjug League is 25. A lot of players there around the right age. Gavin White as well, Dermot O'Connor 23, Shawnee O'Shea 24. As you were saying, like there really is the potential for this Kerry team to go on a bit of a run.
There is, and Paddy always says it, getting the first one over the line is so important in terms of All-Ireland success, because it gives you the confidence. Kerry have won this going down the narrow side of the game against Dublin and against Galway. They were levelling behind in both games, and they just pulled it out of the fire. So the belief that will give a 24-year-old when you haven't even come near your best yet. I mean, you're probably not hitting your best until you're 28, 29. So these fellas have another 3 or 4 years development, and they've had 3 or 4 years of kind of disappointments which will fuel the fire for them. I can't stress how much a couple of narrow defeats fuels the fire for victory. It just really does set you up. You need to lose a couple of those close games to really make sure you get over the line in the future.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue.
I heard through the grapevine that Paddy Andrews was happy enough that Sean O'Shea had put the ball in the net.
Was?
He did. He goes, leave him kick that.
Leave him. 100%. I'll admit that. I was thinking, not within the conditions, the time of the game. He's nearly 60 metres out. And I'm just thinking that he's not kicking that. But there's the little bit you're going, he might.
Subscribe to the Football Pod on the OTB Sports app now.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, Anthony Moyles, good morning to you.
Morning, gentlemen. How are we?
In the end, it was kind of what we expected, that Galway put up a great fight, but just weren't good enough.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. You could summarise it like that. I was confident enough. I was buoyant during the week for Galway. I'd flipped a little bit, and then kind of coming closer to the game, I was kind of thinking, actually, because I essentially was basing it all on the bench and the impact of the bench. But then when I kind of went through the Galway bench, I looked at it and I went, actually, they've even less weapons than Kerry have to come off the bench. So my whole thesis was around the fact that they should have enough up front, and if you take, say, Walsh and Comer, that'll be 2 versus 1 when you just have Clifford on the other side. And I thought that if Comer can chip in with 3 or 4 and Walsh can chip in with 6 or 7, they'll be kind of thereabouts. But unfortunately,
what happened to Comer? Was he just very well marked?
Well, we've spoken about this all year. The defensive structure is very well set in Kerry now. Morley does an unbelievable job. Morley does work that if you go back on the tape and watch it, you can see that he is cutting out balls that just never come. So fellas look up, and you can see it on numerous occasions in that second half when Galway were trying to change things and get ball into Comer straight after half time. A couple of the lads came up from the full back line, looked up as if to put the ball in, and you could just see, avenue cut off, we have to switch and come back out. So Morley is doing all of that unseen work, and he's protecting Foley unbelievably well.
Is there a part of, in a game like that, where you just have to take the risk and go, this is a 30% ball, but if it comes off, if it comes off once every 3 times, we break even, and so therefore we need to hit that ball in. Are we reaching a stage where people are too scared of a turnover?
Well, I think, again, I've always felt, and I think the game will start moving much towards this, that ultimately the teams that want to push on and win big matches and win All-Irelands have to take risks. And Galway had to take risks in that second half. And I think when they were within the game, they should have said to themselves, like people were saying, the Galway will be happy with the first half. I don't think they would have been massively delighted with the first half, because I think Kerry were at 6s and 7s in that first half. They were all over the place. And even the scores they got 2 or 3 handy enough marks. And you're kind of saying they haven't really created a whole pile. Galway were very, very secure. They were just confident in their play. They still weren't getting a massive amount, I thought, from their full back line. Like, I thought Kelly had a very poor game. Not necessarily take away the Clifford point, but he was a fella you could obviously see who was thinking about probably marking Clifford all week, right? Which is a nightmare for anyone. But I think they probably should have said to him, listen, you are going to mark him, but when you don't have the ball, you are going to punch holes for us, which is part of his game. It's in his armoury.
It had been all year.
Absolutely massive. Like, he's a great guy to get beyond the midfield and to run straight at defences and then slip a pass, say, to Comer coming on the loop. That didn't happen once yesterday, and I think they needed to get Comer, not necessarily, they tried to get him out around the 45 in the second half, but still they needed to get the ball to him out around that so he could do those barnstorming runs, take a fella on, hit a shoulder, and even that direct ball which you're talking about, they still didn't try that enough times. So now, admittedly, Walsh was obviously having a man of the match, a man of the season type performance. But without him, if a few of those had snuck wide and all of a sudden the confidence started to drain from him, you were kind of going, who else is going to stand up here for Galway?
Is that just experience on the sideline? Again, Jack O'Connor makes those changes at halftime. I know Ger was saying that maybe Dave Moran wasn't feeling well ahead of the match, and Paul Gainey wasn't playing well, so it's straightforward. But he still takes off his 2 most experienced players. He's decisive. He makes that change. Whereas it felt there was a bit of dithering on the sideline with Galway, with Comer. As you said, he just left it that even 5 minutes too long, 10 minutes earlier, get him out. Because by the time he came out, Kerry had sat right back. And even when he was getting the ball, they almost seemed happy to let him have it out in the 45.
Yeah, there probably was, Nathan. I'd say it's one of the first All-Irelands in a long time where I kind of look and I go, there's not much, it's a wafer-thin squad on both sides. Especially up front. So Kerry have Killian Spillane. After that, now I know Moynihan was injured, but after that you're kind of going, who else comes in here really that's going to make a difference? Like, if you go back over the last, Dublin obviously won a mountain of them, but even Tyrone last year, Tyrone were able to bring on match winners, someone new. So you're in there as a defender, you've seen off a guy for 45, 50 minutes who maybe is fast, pacey, very, very accurate, but then a big monster comes onto you and you're kind of going, well, this is a completely different character now that I'm facing, or vice versa. Kerry didn't have, and Galway certainly didn't have that. Like, I think one of the lads who came on, he was making his debut yesterday, and they
didn't even use all their subs.
Yeah, so you're kind of going, so is that a lack of? They were probably playing off a very thin squad all year, and really the championship, I suppose, now is so quick fire that you can't really experiment too much. You have to blood those guys in the league. You have to get prepared, and probably Galway were at a situation where they needed to hone in on their defensive qualities. They needed to hone in on their game through the league to make sure that they had an All-Ireland push. And maybe this year was kind of one where they went, well, actually, we thought we might get there next year. We'll take it. But actually, we don't have a squad depth of 19 or 20. And I think that ultimately cost them, because the Comer thing is, if you have someone who can come in and say, well, listen, don't worry about it. I'll go in there and I'll do the donkey work for you and I'll do the hard ball. You go on out now to 11 and we put Walsh on the wing. That makes a bit of a different, that gives you a different look for Kerry. But I think Kerry were quite happy. They were kind of saying, listen, we'll have Morley in front of them. We're not going to get caught like Derry did. We're not going to give a goal, okay? How many goals have they given away? 2 or 3 in
3
all year?
Between league and championship.
And only 1 in the championship, yeah.
So they're set from that point of view. And then they're saying to themselves, we have enough elsewhere. Finnerty, they had him handled, and then really the rest of the Galway lads are kind of more workers around the middle and stuff. But I think where Galway probably lost the game was that lack of major energy and drive that they were getting from their full back line, especially Kelly, Daly coming forward. I know he came forward once or twice, but they really missed that kind of real drive and as you say, taking risks.
That was on purpose? Like, that was because they were concerned about the being turned over and conceding a goal, or was it that... Why did that happen, do you think?
It's a horrible situation to be in, right? Because you're marking the best player in the country. Okay, so at the end of the day, you can all talk about it. But the three of us can talk about it, and I say, now listen, Nathan, when I go, you pick Clifford up, right? And Nathan goes, yeah, sure. And then Nathan doesn't pick him up, right? And the ball gets slipped to him and he sticks it in the back of the net. And straight away, fingers are pointing at me saying, what were you doing up the field?
Yeah.
Like, where? So if you watch him, anytime he went, he was running with one eye back.
Definitely.
Whereas in other matches, he was just gone.
Well, definitely got to the halfway line a couple of times and kind of pivoted and turned back, and you're like, just keep going, because someone needs to keep going.
Yeah, someone will find. So there was never a real kind of an idea. You know the way sometimes you watch a game and all of a sudden a 2 or a 4 are in behind the defence and they get a pass and they stick it over the bar. And like in modern day football, your full back line needs to be as prolific nearly now as your full forward line, because ultimately fellas will let them go and they'll end up popping up somewhere else. But he just didn't finish the job, if you get me. So it was fear, I think, of obviously what Clifford could do. There was maybe a fear of, well, actually, if I go, who's going to pick up the man? But I think it's an area that Galway needed to make sure. Like, we spoke about this, saying that I thought Kelly would put Clifford on his back foot, just keep running him back down the pitch.
Yeah.
And it may have resulted in Clifford getting a goal, but like, he still got whatever he got. So you needed to make sure that at the far end, I'm at least going to try to get 2 or 3 assists at the far end, which didn't happen for them.
Yeah, okay. The post-match, there was definitely somebody from the Galway backroom team over talking to the referee about the free kick that he gave when it was a draw game, 67 minutes on the clock. Galway won a turnover in the left corner back position. They're coming out with the ball and it's a free in. And it's a handy free, and Clifford takes it, tips it over, and it's like, and Galway never get back level after that. It felt like it was important, and it felt like it was slightly inconsistent with some of the stuff we'd seen beforehand, where, like the hurling, everything was kind of let go. You know, once you realise the rules of engagement are, this is going to be grand. When the ball's in a ruck, anything goes. Keep the play moving, let's go. And then all of a sudden, now I'm blowing this up. That seems to be important, I think. I think Galway have a little bit of a grand. They didn't see the game out, and they lose by 4 points in the end. But it was a big call.
It was a massive call. The referee's handbook and everyone else would say, "Oh, it was a free," but there's a free and there's a free, and there's a moment in a match, and there's something where you pull out. I also thought the other one was a bit strange, where
they threw the ball up.
Yeah, that could have been like, I mean, literally that was. It was one step over the line and he was outside or inside. So, yeah, you like to see referees making those calls. I remember in the semi-final against Derry, McKinless got done for the same kind of thing, where he was grabbing fellas and going down, and a free against them. It is something that they're looking out for. But at that moment, because I thought probably Comer got fouled before it when he actually turned the ball over from Murphy. He got hit back down to the ground, the ball spilled away and they managed to get it back. But it was a big swing, because you have the ball, you're in control of the ball, and at that stage that score for Galway potentially could take 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're controlling the ball, all of a sudden it's 70 minutes facing a kick out from Kerry and you're a point up. Instead you're 67 minutes, we're a point down and we have to get the ball all the way up the far end of the field. And at that stage, the pitch becomes twice the size it really is. So it is an enormous call. If it happens in the 5th or 6th minute, you kind of go, that doesn't really make a difference.
Well, if it happened in the 5th or 6th minute, because are we saying that had not happened at all in the game up to that point? That, it
happens all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you were letting it go earlier, but now you're not letting it go.
Yeah.
Up to that point, I thought the game had been refereed really well, but I do think that, I can see why, if you're Galway, that's going to haunt you.
I think it is going to haunt you. I'm
still Kerry the best team.
Yeah, I'm slightly. I don't think Daly needed to do it, because he actually had a man behind him who he should have just turned around and slipped the ball to. I don't think it was the losing of the game. Sorry, it possibly was the losing of the game, but I think Galway could have won the game. I think genuinely Galway could have won the game. I'm
going to hold you there. We're going to go to the team hotel in just a moment. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But Kerry ultimately had, the player of the year. They were more efficient and they had a much, much better defensive structure than Galway. And they saw it at the game. You know, they managed the game. And and they also had the guy to come in and make the impact off the bench, which was Killian Spillane.
Yeah. He is a completely different player. It's the point you're making about you have one test and then you have another test, and he's completely different from the player they replaced him with.
100%. Well, he was very direct. You could see, look at me, he kicked a bad one when he came on off his. Remember, and I kind of thought, oh, that's not going to be good for his confidence. But he came round, took the next ball, I think, who did he take on the outside? Kieran Malloy took him on the outside, went around him, only fisted over the bar. He also, he was a guy who was constant threat, and he was someone that Clifford needed in there beside him. So I think he got to and had a hand in, obviously, the free for the third one. So he made a big difference. He essentially saw out the game for Kerry.
How many All-Irelands are they going to win was Tommy's last question to Paddy Andrews. That was a ridiculous question, but it's not really. How many are they going to win?
Like the thing about it is, again, I'm going back to my earlier comment about the razor thin kind of panel. Like, if I look at the rest of the chasing pack, shall we say, there's a lot of very strong squads and teams in there. I don't think anyone will be kind of looking at Kerry kind of going, wow, these guys are going to dominate for the next 7 or 8 years.
Okay, well, let's head over to the team hotel. I'm delighted to say we've got Jack O'Connor with us. Jack, good morning to you. How are you?
Well, I was often healthier, but I'm feeling happy. How are you?
Tell us a little bit about the feeling in the immediate aftermath, because you talked a good bit about the pressure that the team are under. So is it relief? Is it joy? How does it compare?
It's a mixture of everything, really. To be honest with you, this team have been under pressure, and I think that possibly showed, particularly in the first half yesterday. I think we just were a bit unsettled and snatching at chances and that. I mean, we kicked 6 or 7 wides before Galway had a wide. And I think that was the story of the first half. We were happy enough that in general play we were doing well, but we certainly wasn't composed enough up front. So it was a case of just getting them into the dressing room and settling things down. And I think they showed that we kicked 13 points in the second half, which is good going.
You said in the post-match press conference there was a few yahoos in the halftime team talk. What did you say?
No, we won't be going into that now. Look, sometimes, we're normally fairly composed in the dressing room, and there's never any loud talking or shouting or anything like that. But I felt that the boys were a bit lethargic yesterday. Maybe you don't use that kind of a tactic very often, but sometimes it's needed. That fellas just need to just go at the game. I thought there was a way more in us, and look, that showed in the second half because Galway didn't go away. We needed to play very, very well in the second half to win that game, because Galway just kept at it, and they went 2 points up. We pegged them back. They'll go back up again. And look, off the top of my head, there was nothing in that game until the last 5 minutes when we got a couple of scores to pull away.
Yeah, the intensity of your play in the last 5-6 minutes was at a higher level than Galway's, and there was probably a few goal chances for you as well. So that was the team being calm in the clutch moments. What do you put that down to?
Look, the team, this group of lads are maturing. I mean, there's been, as I said to you earlier, there's been a lot of near misses over the last few years, and over the years, and particularly this year, I think that they proved that they could win tight games. I mean, the Dublin game was a big landmark moment for this group, really and truly. And like when push came to shove yesterday, we had that to fall back on. That was a game that we could very easily have lost. And I mean, it did take a remarkable kick at the end to win it, but it was the way that we hung in there when the game was going against us in the second half against Dublin, with all the momentum and the wind behind them and the hill behind them. That was a defining moment for the group, I feel.
Because it's funny, people talk about experience and how Kerry were more experienced than Galway, but some of that experience was actually losing big games, an All-Ireland final replay, an All-Ireland final against the Dubs in 19 as well, where that could have been something that was more traumatic, and that's potentially why the semi-final was so important, because that was the exorcism of some of those ghosts, was it?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I mean, my last All-Ireland final was 11 years ago in 2011, and we lost an agonising, we had suffered an agonising defeat that day, with Stephen Cluxton's famous free. That was a very, very tough one. Did we learn from it? I tell you something, the one thing you learn is that it doesn't go away from you. Those games that you lose like that, they stay with you. They stay with you in a way that the wins don't even stay with you, you know. So if you can't learn from that kind of stuff, you'll never learn.
And so therefore this team, when you say they're maturing, their game management is maturing, their understanding of how to win games and what's required, particularly down the stretch, is maturing. How do you work on that? What over the course of the year, when did you feel that was happening?
Well, I think the league is a very important competition now. Anybody who has ambitions of winning the championship needs to, you know, be road tested in the league, and the league in many ways is a simulator for the championship. And we had some great results and some tough games this year in the league. We had a game down in Tralee in the month of February where we beat Mayo by a point on a very bad night with a huge crowd in Astor Park. I think there was maybe 10 or 12,000 there. That was a game that I felt, you know, we could refer back to many times afterwards, and we did a tough game of Oban Armagh. We won a tight game there. We won a couple of more tight games, and all that feeds into the confidence and the belief that when push comes to shove, you know, you find a way. And you know, that's what we did against Dublin and again yesterday. And
one last thing, can you talk to us a little bit about the influence of Paddy Talley on the game plan and how that evolved over the course of the year?
Look, Paddy is a top class coach, and you know, we've had great fun this year. You know, maybe Paddy does things a little bit different to, you know, the way we do things down in Kerry, but the balance we got in the management, I think, was very important and crucial. I mean, Mike and Diarmuid are great brains for the game as well, and we all contributed to coaching, but Paddy was just a little bit different. I think he just brought the balance to the coaching ticket that we needed. Because
the defensive record is sensational. 1 goal in championship conceded and an absolute worldie from Cormac Costello to score that.
Yeah, and I just said after the game yesterday to the written press that anytime Kerry don't concede goals, you have a chance, you know, because we do have forwards that can kick points. And I mean, 20 points will win you a lot of games once you don't concede a goal or two, and that was the same story yesterday.
Jack, I know you don't like blowing smoke up people's asses down in Kerry, and you've seen the best of them. Where does David Clifford rank?
Look, he's a remarkable young lad in many ways. That, you know, the weight of the kingdom is on his shoulders. You know, the weight of expectation. And the way he handles himself, the way he always comes up in the big games and in the big moments is just remarkable. I mean, after the game yesterday, just for the crack, I went over to, you know, the corner of the Cusick and the hill to have a look at where he kicked that free from. That was a remarkable free. Don't anyone tell you otherwise. Like, that was in Maurice Fitz territory, that free, because it was an absolutely crucial score. I thought that gave us the breathing space. That was right out towards the sideline into a very tricky crosswind in the hill 16, so that was some kick. But look, he's just a remarkable man. He's blessed with a temperament where he rises to the big occasion. It doesn't get the better of him, and sure, that's a great gift.
It feels like this is the start of something for this team, that a dam burst. You talked about Cluxton's free being your last time there as a manager. It feels like there's a similar level of talent in this group.
Similar level of talent to
the
Dublin team, you're saying?
Yeah.
Look, I wouldn't be making those claims because that Dublin team was obviously the greatest team of all time. You know, with some of the greatest players ever. I wouldn't be making those claims. No, I'm just hoping that this win will lift that burden of pressure off these Kerry players, and that they can go on and achieve more success. But we won't be making any big claims. We'll enjoy this one. This is a sweet one, and we'll enjoy it. And sure, look, we'll dust ourselves down after a couple of months and see where we go.
Well, look, we'll let you go. Thanks a million for joining us this morning, Jack. Cheers.
Thank you.
Jack O'Connor, obviously very happy there. We can make some big claims about them if Frank's not going to.
I fear we're not going to talk enough about Clifford is the thing, because we've just come to expect it. Like, we just come to expect that he will deliver on All-Ireland final day.
Yeah, like the funny thing about it is you don't come into the game with any question mark over that he won't deliver. There's no kind of like he's going to, you know, fill the togs here. His head's not going to be right. You know, he's not. So the only question mark you have over him is he fit or not fit? And even when he wasn't fit, he was still scoring whatever he scored against Mayo.
He has the weight of Kerry on his shoulders, and it's only when you're at a final or surrounded by Kerry supporters you fully understand what that pressure is. Like Killian Spillane, you mentioned that bad wide he kicked. It was the first time he touched the ball. The lads around me were like, what the hell is he doing on the pitch?
Yeah, get him off.
Get him off.
Yeah.
Like Paulie Clifford, after 10 minutes, gave the ball away. One of the lads behind me, he's only on the team because his brother's there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's insane.
The level of expectation down there. So you know, like we spoke about Conor O'Connor and what the Kildare job and everything. Like, this is his third spin, obviously, with Kerry. You know, and it's a thing of he goes in again under massive pressure when Kerry are probably, like, I'd say after the last one, did people blame him down there? 100% they blamed him, right? So he comes back in again. Backroom team change, brings in someone like Paddy Talley, who I would say Kerry people looked at and went, sorry, this guy is a defensive coach. We're not a defensive. We're playing the traditional football. We don't need to play that Ulster style type of stuff. So you can imagine the pressure he again was coming under. And for a spell, Kerry, even throughout the league, they were playing quite a, you know, counter-attacking type game. Very defensive, which of course is what you need to do in the modern game, but you can imagine it's stuck in the craw of an awful lot of Kerry people. So he went against all of that, and ultimately he got to the Holy Grail by saying no, he was right, you know. But he deserves a lot of plaudits for obviously doing it and doing it his way. He's a smart backroom team, like Mike Quirk and a couple of other guys around him. He you know, and I think, you know, he alluded to it, and obviously you heard them saying it last night. They won that game yesterday in that last 6 or 7 minutes, when they have lost games recently in that last 6 or 7 minutes. So that's a big swing. You know, people might say, well, like the Dublin game even, that was a big swing. They could have lost that game against Dublin, but they managed to. And it's actually not the scores that Clifford gets in those situations. It's the stuff like the Stephen O'Brien blocks. It's those other things. It's those smaller things that you don't really kind of look at that actually make those situations happen. Because you're going to get scores. Like, I mean, you're going to get those things with Kerry. But it's the other things where the body is being put on the line, the chasing back that occurs. And you saw an insatiable appetite for them for that work rate yesterday.
Yeah, and you can argue over the course of the championship as well, that Dublin game, like, is a game that would have got away from this team over the last couple of years, and look, maybe a better Dublin team would have, you know, and the ifs, ands, and maybes are going to go long into the winter. Like, if Con plays in that semi-final, are we saying it's different? I'm not sure. I still think maybe Kerry might have got it done this year because there was something about them. That Steele was there. I don't know.
It's a hard one, and you know, it goes back to your previous question about the chasing pack. You know, it's a brilliant time for Gaelic football in the sense of it's quite a level playing field at the top. There's definitely six. I think there's 6 teams, if not 7 teams, that are there's favourites, but you're kind of going, you know, on any like injuries, different things to big players, like squad depth. Like, I'd still put Tyrone and Dublin squad depth ahead of the 2 teams yesterday.
The one thing is that about that squad depth is that there's a suggestion that Brian Fenton might be thinking about taking a year out. I'm not sure. There's strong rumours that Desi might be finishing up and that Declan Darcy might be coming in. That was that swept. There was a New York GA fundraiser in Croke Park on Friday or Saturday night, and that was the seat of all rumours. That's where the Jason Sherlock to Monaghan rumour was
it was rumour mill.
It's on the back page of the
was Desi there yesterday for the presentation?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not sure if he's around at the moment, and so there's some suggestion that there'll be work commitments that might be
it could just be
an issue, but even into the future as well. So like, people in the know didn't know what the future was. So there's a huge period of transition. There's a new Donegal manager. There's a new Monaghan manager. There is
Derry Armagh,
a new Mayo manager.
Yeah,
all of whom will be thinking, well, if Tyrone can do that and Galway can do that, why can't we do that? Now, my one concern is Jack O'Connor just said there that hopefully this victory relieved a bit of that pressure on them, and if that Kerry team plays unhindered in the first half with the expectation, now they're like, we're all Ireland winners, and they start getting cocky, then you do have a very talented group of young core players who are actually going to get better. Clifford hasn't peaked yet. I don't think Clifford has peaked.
No. But at the same time, I look, Moran is probably getting close to being done. Geaney is probably getting close to being done. Stephen O'Brien is, brilliant first half yesterday, but he's a guy that you're probably saying, is he going to? He will go again, absolutely. But you're just getting closer to that other side. Whereas, and they're 3 big players, and that's 3 out of 15. So you're saying, okay, yes, Moran can be replaced. They've got guys waiting in the wings to do that. O'Connor, Jack Barry, whoever else comes in. I still think they need one extra forward. And I am not just saying a workhorse. They need one extra, seriously. So is that Killian Spillane who stands up and goes, actually, I can do this over 70 minutes, not just 15 or 20? That's the big question for them. Or do they spring someone completely out of the blue? Because all of the great teams have had, I'm not saying 2 Cliffords, but they've definitely have 2 lesser Cliffords, if you get me. But you have 2 threats that if you take him out, you've still got this other guy in the corner who's performing really, really well.
Yeah.
And the great Dublin team of the generational team had that. They had guys that once you mark 2 of them, someone else pops up out of somewhere else and gets 1-6, and you're kind of going, well, Jesus, we didn't count it as that. So I still think they need to find that wherever that is. Maybe that's there on the bench. Maybe it is there. Maybe we just haven't seen it this year. Maybe there has, because O'Connor is a type of a fella. He's always been a manager that has been very, very loyal to guys who have done it for him and have said, no, you will get that. Paul Murphy has been thereabouts, and really, he once he was gone, and but he was still his go-to man with 15 minutes to go in that defence. But he doesn't chop and change much. He doesn't just throw flyers out there too often.
No, it will be an interesting league campaign to see if they can.
Well, do teams figure out how to play against them as well? Because you say it's such a condensed season now. There's not a huge amount of time, but there's a lot of new coaching tickets coming in. There'll be a lot of time spent watching the videos of the Kerry defence and what they've changed to solidify it. That actually 6 months of looking at that, people will be able to pick holes a little bit easier. Yeah, but it is a tricky thing to do. Like the one I think it was. Johnny Heaney shot, I think it was Heaney's. Remember the one Stephen O'Brien blocked? So Daly comes in and gives that pass. But the whole idea there was to try to get Morley out of 6. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get Morley looking one way, and whilst just throwing a ball to the far side. Now they tried it once or twice where they were kind of running to the right, and then they threw a ball kind of diagonally across left to try and get it in behind Morley to a fella coming in from the far side. Didn't work out on a couple of occasions, but it very nearly did on that occasion. But yes, absolutely, Nathan, someone's going to have to decide, well, do we just push a man up on Morley? Do we sacrifice a man at the back? And do we just go right up on them and actually have 7?
You definitely need to do that for portions of the game, but then you also need an extra man at the back. Because,
exactly, So you can play with 16 or 17.
Yeah, that's the way to stop them.
Yeah. Before you go, Shane Walsh, because if Galway win this, this is the Shane Walsh final. In 50 years' time, they're talking about the Shane Walsh final. It was Stanley Matthews-esque.
I thought he was man of the match. I would have given him man the match, because I don't think I've seen. Clifford is an unbelievable player, don't get me wrong, but I think Walsh yesterday literally grabbed the whole of the Galway team and said, listen, sit up there in my back because I'm going to do this for you. Now he showed his full repertoire of skills yesterday. It was I've unfairly maybe I've questioned his resolve or his mental capacity over the last number of years, but I think it was the 62nd or the 63rd minute that he had a free. Remember, there was a long delay. They hadn't scored, I think, since the 47th minute, and it was a tricky free, and he was outstanding over it for a long, long time. And I said, if he misses this, it's all over. It's done. They're gone. And he just stood up and just clipped it over the bar and just curled it over the bar as if that's no problem.
Big deal.
Let's go again. The scores from play were absolutely he's marking, in my view, the guy who was very close, who was definitely in the top 3 for Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Sorry, he was being marked. Tom O'Sullivan is no slouch. That guy is as quick as you can get as a defender. Very, very sticky. Has put the X on forwards all year, and he didn't get within a hand of him. He actually made him look like he was only because he has had such a year and Kerry have such belief in him, they left him on, because I'd say they were saying to themselves, well, who else can do the job?
Yeah.
Who else could you put on him? Because he was just unbelievable. What a performance by him. An awful pity for him. To obviously it ends the way it is. And McDade, by the way, I thought, from a Like, I mean, from a midfielder's point of view, to kick 4 in an All-Ireland from play, nearly get a 50, just snapped at that one when they kind of needed it.
They did.
But he was...
They had 3 wides in a row around that period, and one of them was the sideline, which, ostentatious to go for it, but you kind of had to go for it.
Yeah, I thought that was one of those again. I thought they should have played that short. Like, I mean, they should have worked something. They should have kept the ball. I thought it was just a bit, like I think they needed to try to work something else in that situation. Now he's kicking it.
Yeah.
So if he gets it, you go.
Yeah, I was backing him to do it because it kind of felt like it's Morris Fitz. But right, worthy champions. They were the best team this year.
Correct, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Who's getting the Meath League?
Haven't a clue.
Every time he comes in.
Yeah, I thought that would have been around the rumour mill. On obviously it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't high up the agenda.
Have you met anybody for a coffee or anything like that that we should know about?
No. Don't know.
There's excitement in Monaghan. I've met a couple of prominent Monaghan people over the weekend, and they were very excited about the prospect of Jo coming down.
Wow.
So
there you go.
Right. The 2022 football season is in the books. We'll do our power rankings with Owen when he comes back tomorrow. He can have Kerry at number 1. We've heard from Jack O'Connor on the show. We'll bring you some more from the team hotel in just a little while. But a reminder that Braeburn is the official coffee partner of OTB. Each week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, just check out @OffTheBall on Twitter, like and retweet our Braeburn competition post, and you'll be in the draw. Braeburn coffee never compromises on quality or taste to give you the best on-the-go coffee experience on the road. It's available at Apple Green today. More reactions, as I said, from the Kerry camp to come. First, here's the Limerick manager, John Kiley, paying this tribute to Brian Cody following that seismic news on Saturday. See you after this.
There's always that tradition, isn't there, John, of the opposing manager going to talk to the opposition players. Did Brian visit your dressing room?
He did, Carl, yeah, he did, in fairness. And always does when we meet them. And listen, when Brian takes the floor in the dressing room, everybody pays attention, and he was fantastic in the way he addressed the players. Couldn't be more magnanimous, and acknowledging of their efforts, and proud of his own team's efforts. Yeah, absolutely.
It was a great battle, wasn't it, John?
It was a great game. It was a titanic battle, and I suppose for Brian, I'm sure he took huge satisfaction from their performance. Probably a lot of disappointment that they couldn't get that little bit more, but they know they gave it everything, and listen, that was the hallmark of every team that went out under his tenure. You knew exactly what you were going to get. They always got the absolute maximum out of themselves, and I suppose that's a testament to his planning and preparation and his motivation of the teams, and he just always had a really hard working, ruthless team out on the field, and that was there from start to finish.
I was watching the Galway documentary during the week on the 1998 season of the footballers, and John O'Mahony during the week ahead of tomorrow's game, John. And there's a moment in the documentary when Mick O'Dwyer comes into the dressing room and you can't hear a pin drop. I'd say it was the same last weekend with Brian Cody and those Limerick players, the amount of respect that's there from in the game.
There's huge respect across the entirety of the GA for Brian, and his commitment, his dedication, what he has done, with numerous different teams, not just one team. I think that's really the pinnacle of it. He didn't do one bunch of players. He had several different bunches of players, and it was always consistent in terms of the way those teams performed at the very highest level. They set new levels of performance, and levels that very few were able to come close to, for any consistent period of time. So I think just an incredible contribution, and just wish him well. Wish Elsie and himself the very, very best. They've given a lot, and I think now they'll enjoy their time together. I'm sure he'll be at every hurl match still all over the country, because he loves going to hurl matches two together. And I just wish him a long years ahead of enjoyment out of the game again.
It's John Cody, the Limerick manager. Game recognised game. He's talking about Brian Cody there, and are they going to do the 5 in a row? The good chance they will.
I'd imagine if we sat here in 2008 with Kilkenny, we would have said Kilkenny were going to do the 5 in a row. Something happens, but
it's true.
It does feel that there's a lot of teams in a state of flux. It's fascinating to see what happens next, how quickly they make an appointment. Who are the contenders? Eddie Brennan is going to be on Off the Ball tonight, talking about Brian Cody.
right? I think there's a strong belief that Derek Ling is in the boxes, and that there's actually an under-20 management group, Michael Rice, Peter Barry, and somebody else, who are also potentially, they could just catapult up and do the gig.
Cody's got to have a big influence on that.
Do you think so?
Surely.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, come on, you don't let him walk away and not say. Any ideas who should be next?
I think that that never works out well.
Is there a part of Cody that goes, do you know what? Shefflin stood up to me this year. He stood up. He's got everything you want.
Sorry, we should talk about this, right? Again, talking to Kilkenny people, they're like, well, you can't get turned down. You can't. So if you are whoever's job it is to go and appoint, right? So if you're the county board chairman or whoever it is designated to do it, how do you approach that issue? I think you go out and you say, let's just have a little coffee, right? And rather than say, do you want the job? You say, what would we need to do to get you to take this job? Because he's the right man for the job.
Mm.
He just has this other thing going on in his life where he's committed to Galway. And the timing is not great. But other than that, he's the right man for the job. And now's the time, because look how close they are.
Well, and when does it come up again? Like, the next guy comes in, like TJ's gone. So this manager gets the last out of TJ.
Yeah. And maybe Richie Hogan stays for another year and gets some game time.
Quite possibly. So
so you've got to go to Henry and say, look, we know that obviously you have a job and we understand that you're a man of your word, and that's not in question, but we really want you. What do we need to do to make that happen?
Is there a possibility that the last 3 days, so Cody told him on Tuesday, I'm gone, I'm done, hold fire, Brian, we'll have the new management team ready to go, negotiations have been had, signed, sealed, delivered.
And maybe it's Derek Ling, and he gets a crack at it because he's been around as part of that backroom team and understands what they need to do, and obviously a good hurling man.
I'm going through in my head the long list of former Kilkenny players I've been texting over the last 48 hours to come on the show, and the ones who said they would do it, but the ones who were just unavailable and there was no some other time.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about the dream team that you could put together of lads who are incredibly into and part of that setup, and who have cut their teeth already.
But do they all mix together? Like, if Shefflin goes in, does Eddie Brennan go in and McFenley go in?
I don't know. Michael Fenley, PhD in exercise and sports science. You're like, that would be a very good person to have involved. Also, gave his body literally to the point where
to the science of Kilkenny hurling.
So I don't know, that would be pretty interesting. So with the Jason Sherlock thing, we should just Monaghan lining up move for jail. This is the back page headline on the Herald. The Herald, obviously, it's basically a Dublin paper, right? It's kind of supposed to be national, but small picture of David Clifford, massive headline of jail. I recognise this. I respect that. It's exactly. Jason Sherlock is being lined up to become the next Monaghan football manager. The former Dublin player and coach is believed to be the chief target that Monaghan GA have identified in their search to replace Seamus McEnany, who stepped down earlier in the month after 3 years in charge. It would be very different from McEnany in that, Ger's involvement with the Dublin team seemed to be very about tactical innovation, and I'm dying to see this. I think it'll be great.
Well, it's interesting. It's sort of come completely out of the blue, and a very different departure from Monaghan, who are in that top 8, but never quite in that top 5, 6. Like you were talking there about 5, 6, maybe even 7 counties been at that top table and thinking of a chance of winning the All-Ireland. I don't think Monaghan are quite in that at the moment. They're just below, but they have been there. But again, they're in a situation where Conor McManus is getting to the stage where he's got 1 or 2 more years in him.
Yeah, definitely. So he's moved back up to Monaghan and doesn't have any travel to do and keeps himself very fit. So I had a little bit of a hip problem, which I think is clearing up.
Tell me a bit more about this dinner on Saturday night where you're getting all your goss from.
I wasn't at it. I wasn't even at it.
Wow.
Oh yeah, so I
you know people who were.
Yeah, well, that's
so it was. What was it? The New York Association.
Some New York GA fundraiser where they were honouring Jim Gavin. So there's actually a picture of I think a picture of Jim Gavin. Was it Jim and Declan Darcy or Jim and Jo at it? Joe Canning was there. Most of this is gleaned from Instagram and other people, but that's where everybody was together, and that's where the
rumour mill went wild.
Absolute overdrive. Apparently Donegal are trying to get Jim McGuinness back.
Wow.
Apparently they're making the call in the same way that the Kilkenny County Board have to make the call.
I love the way you're just throwing all this out there.
Well, sure, look.
All of this told to you in confidence outside a pub outside the All-Ireland final.
No, none of this was told in confidence. This was just like people. So if you were to, there's a world in which Jim McGuinness, J.O., Declan Darcy, and a few others are like new managers of teams who are looking at Kerry going, we can do this.
I'm delighted that down in Mayo we're just keeping our heads down, not getting involved in any of the
I did hear something about Mayo as well, but I can't remember what it was now. There was too much.
That they will botch it.
There was information
They won't
overload.
be appointing their manager by social media, Ger. That's the main thing.
Are you sure? Who's getting it?
Mike Solon seems to be the raging hot favourite.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see how that develops over a few years.
Is there some talk of Holmes and Kennelly coming?
I think it was more of a. It wasn't ruled out.
Right. Is Tommy Lyons in for the gig too?
Tommy, what could have been? What could have been? Yeah, Mike Solon, but he was, I think, favourite last time, even when Horan came back.
Right.
Maybe Stephen Rochford goes back again. Obviously, there's a strong connection there with Andy Moran, so maybe you know when Andy's done with Leitrim, he slots in there alongside Mike Solon. His brother Barry, I'm sure, would return as well as S&C. It's all set up.
Soft Sound says, Nathan complaining about Kerry lads not social distancing. Is he for real? Bitter Mayo man. Lol.
It was a joke.
You can't make jokes. People do not appreciate them. Joe Healy says the linesman made the call on the Spillane handhold for that free. By the letter of the law, he was right. The handhold needs to be stamped out. It does, but you should stamp it out in the first minute of the game as opposed to in the last minute of the game. And Morley sitting back forced Jack Barry to move towards centre back and holding centre 2, leading to McDade having a great game, scoring 4 points and kicking wides. Definitely everything is cause and effect, and that's why those chess games in the first half are really interesting to watch. They're especially good when you're at the game because you can see where all the space is. Maybe it looks terrible on TV because it's like pendulum back and forth, but like you understand that they're probing for something, and then every turnover becomes important and the crowd gets into it.
Well, there was that moment in the second half that's been highlighted quite a bit where Galway had the goal chance where the ball just needs to be popped inside. That was pretty much right in front of me, and at the time it never felt like Galway were going to play that pass. It never felt they were going to go for broke to get that goal. That again, that risk of turnover was just so much, and there was such a fear of it that, again, maybe that's why you end up losing the game by 4 points, that you need a goal against this Kerry side.
Yeah, you're going to have to, cause they are going to kick 20 points, and as Jack O'Connor just told us a while back, if you don't concede a goal playing for Kerry, you've got a really good chance of winning, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. So we're going to speak with Ger O'Connor and Jason Foley in just a moment. This is OTB AM. We're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day, and we're celebrating in the team hotel. No sign of Owen Sheehan yet. We've
outrageous.
We've put the call out.
Ger, I can guarantee you, when Mayo win the All-Ireland, I will take the call.
You'll be broadcasting live from wherever it is. I mean, obviously this is never going to happen, so
I can easily say it.
You're writing checks that you don't need to cash at any point. They're rubbery checks. It is 8:57 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, 087 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. I'm delighted to say we have All Ireland winners Ger O'Connor and Jason Foley with us. Good morning to you, lads. How are you getting on?
Morning, thanks. How's it going?
Yeah, very good. What kind of a night did you have, Jason?
Long one. Barely shut down this morning, to be honest. Yeah, it was a great night, to be fair. It's all a bit of a blur at the moment. But,
were you in D2 at 4 o'clock in the morning?
I made Owen actually. Ironically,
he didn't show up today, by the way. I hope you know that. You have shown up. He hasn't.
Yeah, he was in great spirits last night anyway when I met him. So yeah, he was inside D2. Let that be known.
Yeah, we saw his Instagram, so we've got the picture of him up already with the cup. Who had the cup at the end last night? Does anybody know where it is?
No idea. Absolutely no idea where it was. Yeah. I assume it's in the hotel. So hopefully.
It's been like the time the Dubs went to New York and it suddenly disappeared for about 3 hours.
Yeah, it's been kidnapped by somebody. Dermot, talk us through what are your recollections of the game now, thinking back to it. What are the bits that stand out for you?
I suppose not a lot now at the moment. suppose Shawnee's free actually the very first thing, and he missed a handy enough free there at the very start of the game, so that kind of pops into my mind. In comparison to the one he scored against Dublin, yeah, that's probably something that sticks out a small bit. We'll have to give him a bit of stick over that later on.
Jack O'Connor said in the post-match press conference that the half times there was a few yahoos was the phrase that he used. So he obviously lit a rocket up your ass basically at half time. What did he say?
What did he say? I don't know what the definition of a yahoo is like, but fellas are nearly too tired at half time anyway to be saying that was joking. No, he just we just kind of weren't hitting our targets and stuff, I suppose, and he made sure that we were kind of back on track with our targets for the first 15 minutes, second half. Made sure that we knew we weren't. He knew that we can't even speak. That we weren't hitting our targets. But yeah, and first 15 minutes of the second half was much better, boys.
Jason, I doubt he was saying too much to you at halftime, because he must have been delighted with your performance over the full 70 with the way you handled Damien Comer. Like, so much of the talk coming in was about Shane Walsh and Damien Comer, and Walsh obviously had the game of his life. Comer didn't score. Can you talk about the prep you did for that and then how it worked out on the day?
Yeah, I suppose for the majority of the year, my role has probably been simplified, really, just given a job, given a player to mark, and just going after that player for a full 70 minutes, really. And it's nice to kind of have a simplified role like that, where I just pick up a player and just do my job for the team. That's my job. I'll do my job, and let everything else take care of itself. So happy enough now with my performance.
How do you prepare for somebody like Comer? Is there somebody in training that you can go up against and say, all right, you have to pretend to be him this week? Or like, because he's a very specific and kind of unique challenge in some ways.
Yeah, I suppose that's the great thing about the squad we have at the moment. The players were very selfless, I suppose, where like, I mean, I could be marking someone in training during the week, and they know that maybe I could be marking a Damien Comer the weekend, so they try alter their game in training to maybe to replicate what I might be coming up against this weekend. So that's the best we could do. And I suppose the other thing is memory bank, really, of marking him before over the years, and marking players like him, similar stature. That comes down to a lot of it as well. So it's a bit of both, bit of our forwards replicating, and just a bit of memory bank.
Yeah, and Dermot, similar kind of team question to you. The midfield battle, which obviously you were going to be central to, was going to be one of those things that decided the course of the game. How did you prepare for that, and what was your specific challenge over the course of the 75-80 minutes?
I suppose, yeah, the midfield battle is very important. Dave and Jack and myself were kind of just given the role of trying to feed the ball into the boys, and let them do the work inside, and tackle the back, work hard. I suppose how to prepare for it. Watching probably Paul Conroy, Killian McDade, watching a lot of video on him, going back over their different games, picking up a few traits, talking with each other, and seeing if we can pick up a few bits and pieces off each other. That's kind of more or less it, really, just a bit of study and just trying to practice it then in training, implement it into training.
Jason, in the middle of the game, are you aware of how good the game is? Like, Walsh is obviously doing incredible stuff, Clifford's doing incredible stuff, and the atmosphere was sensational. Like, again, it's been a long time since we've had a full house properly at an All-Ireland final because of COVID. Are you aware that this is actually turning out to be an all-time classic when you're in the middle of it?
Funny enough, a lot of fellas would probably say no, but like, I think we're kind of growing to love what we're doing, kind of soaking it all in. We kind of made a conscious effort to enjoy every second of yesterday, because I suppose a lot of us were around in 2019 and the occasion was nearly bigger than the game, whereas this time I felt like we enjoyed the battle as much as the occasion, enjoyed the grind. So different stages of the game yesterday, you're kind of thinking this is fantastic, this is great to be in a battle, and we kind of had enough belief in ourselves that we'd come out the right side of it, I suppose.
Well, that's really interesting, because the belief was obviously 2019. One of the big things was, you guys have experience of All-Ireland final day, and that's going to stand you in good stead. But actually, maybe 2019 isn't a great experience for you guys to be leaning back on or reliving. But actually, Jack O'Connor talked about the Dublin game this year being a key moment for you as a group, where there's a massive prize on the line against an opponent who have beaten you in big games recently, but once you come through that, you're kind of free from a bit of the burden of that. Is that true? Was there just an extra sense of confidence because of the Dublin game specifically, when the game was in the melting pot yesterday with the final, 67 minutes, it's a draw, but you never panicked? Actually, you got much better in those final 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I suppose hindsight's a great thing, where I suppose we talked about post Dublin game within a half hour after the game. We said that it would mean nothing to us if we didn't go on and finish the job off yesterday. So in hindsight, it was a big, probably a big moment for the group. Previous years, we mightn't have got over the line in them games, but we've kind of grown to love, as I said, love the battle, love the grind, and love when the game come down to those fine margins. We kind of we relished it. So it was nice to be able to come out on the right side of one of them against Dublin. And obviously, I mean, it would have to give us great confidence going into the week that was last week at a Galway. Had to.
Yeah, and those final 5-10 minutes, when you get the opportunity to watch them back, you'll see that you're actually creating loads of chances, and really there was nothing from Galway at that stage that was threatening you. I'm sure it doesn't feel like that way on the pitch, but there was a control of the game that you guys managed to seize. We're going to let you go here, lads, because I understand that many of your colleagues are already in taxis on the way to the pub. What are the plans, Dermot? What's next?
I think the few fellas on about going to the ports heading out for a while, so we may make a trip there. I think we're stopping Kerry Group and Nace on the way down, and God knows after that, actually Kilkenny then.
It's going to be some week.
A few fellas on about Ibiza next Friday, but we'll see.
There's talks of Vegas next weekend.
Say yes to everything. It's 1 week only. Thanks a million, Dermot O'Connor and Jason Foley. Congratulations, lads. Yeah,
cheers.
Absolutely. That was so we have been talking really about Galway not getting Comer into the game, but it is one of the all-time great man-marking achievements. Like Aidan O'Mahony on Michael Murphy is like the last one of those that I really remember in an All-Ireland final, where it's like, okay, this is going to happen for us because of this. And it's a performance that actually changes the perception of a footballer. He's now going to be talked about the way Chrissy McKay gets talked about.
Well, that's what all Ireland finals do. Like, you build your reputation on those massive games, and like to flip it, like Damien Comer came in as maybe an outsider for a footballer of the year, and again, it doesn't happen for him. And as much as we can lay some criticism on Damien Comer's door, like, they never got the ball into him on enough occasions, and then they seem to leave him in there for too long and not utilise him enough. So I don't think it was all on Comer, but like, they were just like the Kerry defence. Like, remember, we came into the last 2-3 years, every big game was, well, the Kerry defence, we're not quite sure. Whereas now, actually, Kerry have the toughest defence in the country. Yeah, and they're going to they're really going to make it difficult for everybody in the coming years. Right, it is 7 minutes past 9. I think we're going back to the team hotel. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Graham O'Sullivan is with us. Graham, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning. I'm not too bad now.
A nice quiet night. Where did you end up?
I was here in the hotel in the Gibson and went into D2 and then came back here again. So yeah, very quiet night.
Have you been to bed?
Yeah, I've been to bed, yeah.
We were just talking to a couple of your colleagues there about the build-up and the preparation and everything. What was your build-up like? Because again, Jack O'Connor has talked about the pressure that the team was under, and we know from history that Kerry fans put the team under a lot of pressure, and that's the burden, but it's also the joy then that you can fall back on all the tradition. So what was the build-up like for you in terms of that pressure?
Yeah, I suppose there was pressure. I kind of probably tried to dislocate myself away from that kind of stuff though a lot. I'd like to see myself as fairly horizontal now, so I kind of try to have a bit of crack with stuff really, rather than being mounting the pressure on myself.
That actually comes across as well, is that you've enjoyed this experience this year, and all the great teams, they spend so much time in their company. We're looking at the Limerick hurlers and how much time they spend with each other, and they have to have that bond if they're going to get through tight games the way you guys have come through this year. So it does sound like you've placed an importance as a group on actually having the crack.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. There's enough stresses out in life, where football is there to be enjoyed, and it's a bit of a freedom for us all. So there's definitely emphasis on that, even in training and stuff, that of course when it's time to tune in and stuff, we do that. But otherwise, it's about having the crack and enjoying the moment and enjoying being there.
From your own perspective, you've had a great season and a great final as well. How have you improved as a footballer this year under this setup? What has given you the freedom to express yourself the way you are at the moment?
I don't know. I suppose my confidence probably has built steadily over the league campaign and stuff, getting the opportunity there. The management also instilled a serious belief in myself. And also, I suppose, there's big characters out there as well. The other 5 backs are all big characters who I could look to and turn to for advice if I ever needed it. And even there's fellas there who weren't even on starting 15 who I could always turn to as well and ask for advice. So all that probably accumulated into something good for me. Thank God.
We were talking with Anthony Moyles earlier on about the role of the full back line and how actually you get a lot of opportunities to kick scores and you have to take them because the way that the defence doubles up and the defensive structure that Galway offered in particular, it was going to require people like you popping up with scores. Is that something you've always been confident with and always capable of, or is that also something that you've added to your game over the last while?
I suppose if you're maybe asked the club, they'd say that if I'll ever stop shooting, because I'd just be pulling the trigger. But I suppose when it comes to Kerry, that's probably something that's maybe come into the game, is having a crack at the post. There's times I'd say there's some fellas that be running past Tig there, he's pulling his hair out, saying, what is this fella going up the field for again? But yesterday, thank God, it came off with a little score for myself anyways.
Well, you can just go with the Jack O'Connor quote from post game yesterday. At the start of the year, he wasn't kicking the ball for love nor money. Now he's one of our best foot passers, right and left, kicked a great score, made 2 or 3 others. Absolute revelation.
I wouldn't kick for love nor money. Yeah, I suppose he was right. I wasn't. He did say that. We had a chat, and he was just saying if you just start kicking the ball here, after that it's divine intervention. If something happens, it'll happen. And I suppose, look, I did take that on board. I tried to kick more, and it probably steadily improved. Confidence builds. So when you're confident, you try things. You take a risk. So maybe that's what I was, just taking more risks. Maybe you could and having a go at it.
Tell us a little bit about what Paddy Tally has brought to the setup.
He was unbelievable, in fairness. He just brought maybe a mean mentality to us defensively anyways. We've been shrewd all year in defence, thanks to him. We were really tight-knit as well, I suppose, back there, conceding, I think, was it only 1 goal in the championship. Was it a goal in the league? I mean, it's something to be very proud of in terms of his work, for him, I suppose, that to have a stat like that at the end of the year. And I think we've all definitely become better defensively minded and probably better defenders because of him too.
It's not a bad lineage you have down in Drummond Pierce's now when you're following the footsteps of Jack and of Declan O'Sullivan.
Yeah, it's nice to be part of that club now. I suppose, Jack, of course, being the manager, and then Dick being the player, or someone, I suppose, would have been a hero of mine anyways, when I was growing up watching him play. And I obviously wanted to aspire to maybe one day do what he done. So now I'm a cornerback and he was a centre forward, probably one of the best to do it. So we're 2 opposite poles. Definitely wouldn't have liked to have marked him, that's for sure. But it's unreal to be part of it. He managed the club there as well, and he had some head for it. It was unbelievable. He was a great someone for me to lean on there for advice as well.
Can you just go back to making you better defenders? Obviously the defensive structure is important, and making sure the forwards are tracking back and also kind of leading that point. But as an actual defender yourself, what have you done to become a better defender?
I suppose it's just maybe positional awareness on the field at times, knowing when to step off him, when to push up on him, when to be really tight, and when you can maybe afford not to be so tight. Were important things, I suppose, especially inside in the corner, full back there. You need to be comfortable in situations, maybe that's when you're one-on-one and stuff like that. So a few little tricks of the trade, were very helpful. Maybe from the front, if you were marked from the front or the back, things like that, and definitely improve your defensive, depending on where the balls come in and stuff like that. Yeah,
so it's been an all-round package of improvement, becoming better kicking. Feel free to go forward, have some confidence, and at the same time you're getting confidence from actually being, if you are stuck one-on-one for whatever, it is a whole package, and that seems to be like the quality of the coaching that you guys are getting is allowing the group to improve collectively.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It is definitely a full package. Everything, they all have their own little part to play. Everyone in the management team, from Paddy to Jack to Dermot and Mike, they all give little nuggets of information. They've all have some massive experience. They've all been there, done that. So you're kind of getting little nuggets here and there that help you overall game, yourself develop, but also, I suppose, the team as well improves off it. How important was coming through the last 10 minutes against Dublin, where they had put you on the rack and then you recover twice, actually? I know everybody talks about Shawnee's free to win it, but actually previous to that you got the points that gave you the cushion that ultimately meant that Shawnee's free was to win the game, not to equalise, which actually showed like great tenacity. How important was that yesterday? Being able to draw on that, I suppose, it was huge, because we were, after coming from something like that, was that last 2 minutes in Dublin where we were, we were up against it, and being able to pull from probably that mental state of being in that pressure zone probably helped. And we were under pressure at times yesterday, but I suppose you always maybe had a bit of belief that we can do this. We've been here before. We've had to grind it out, and I think one thing we say is that we enjoy the grind. We enjoy that grind of, if it does go there, we're going to enjoy this. We're going to grind it.
This time last week we were talking to William O'Donoghue of Limerick, and he was saying that Grode Hegarty felt they might be renaming the Lee McCarthy the Grode Hegarty Cup. Such was the quality of his performances. Tongue in cheek, I think. Is David Clifford walking around saying similar?
No, he's not. That man seriously down to earth for his stardom, you'd say. He's absolute class act. I mean, it's getting to watch him in training. I have been on the receiving end of some serious toastings, but he's just sensational, and being able to watch him in full flow is unbelievable. And he's just one of those fellas that you could just throw the ball into, and that he's going to do something with it. He may not score. He's like, outside of his scoring, he's a serious playmaker as well. So he's kind of the all-round package, really.
How does that work at training when they're deciding who's going to mark Clifford?
I don't know. We're run away from him. Thankfully, those decisions we don't have to make them. Decisions are made for us. So you just have to man up and take it on the chin.
Listen, Graham, congratulations. An absolutely stunning performance from you. You were definitely in the conversation for man of the match, like even with the Clifford and Shane Walsh performances. So it's great to be able to perform on the big day the way you did at this stage of your career. There's loads to come. Enjoy whatever comes for the rest of the week, and thanks a million for talking to us today.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
It's Graham Sullivan there with an outstanding performance yesterday, and just interesting to get a little bit of insight into what they're working on. Turns out they're working on everything.
Paddy Tally, eh?
Yeah.
Bit of Ulster steel there.
I mean, there's a lesson there for everybody, right? We all need a little bit of set dancing.
I'm hoping, in years to come, when the story of this comes out, that there was a sort of Brian Clough style moment where he walks into the dressing room. It was like, soft. Imagine that. Soft.
Put your medal in the bin.
Yeah.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio for you across the day. OTB Gold is the story of Declan Murphy at 1 o'clock. The latest episode of Koi Gig is at 3. Our Culture Hall of Fame is Lenny Abramson. At 6 o'clock, OTB Gold is Dr. Harry Edwards talking about OJ and that documentary. And then the show is live tonight with more reaction to the All-Ireland final and the Brian Cody news over the weekend. I don't think anybody was surprised by Cody's news, were they? Because it had leaked out.
Well, I think that's because it had dragged on for 3 or 4 days. I think it was a bit of a surprise when it first came out last Tuesday, and even when David Herity was on during the week saying that he'd heard that last year he was probably going to go, but was obviously convinced to stay on. So maybe that took away from it, and the fact that it was football final weekend as well meant everyone. Something else to talk about pretty quickly.
It's a pretty interesting job right now, given the quality of player that they have. So,
what does Cody do next? Does he do a Mickey Hart on it?
Was Eddie O'Connor saying?
Is he going to save hurling in Mayo or
Dublin?
Somewhere like that?
Dublin? The Dublin job? That would be interesting.
Did you hear this?
I did not hear that. No, I'm floating this now. This is right. We will continue our tribute to his incredible career. Here's Brian Hogan talking over the course of the weekend. We're back after this with Mullaney in the studio.
there much said in front of the group, Brian? Was there much said at half time? Was there much said after games when you'd won All Irelands? Was it, or is it just that kind of silence and the words chosen carefully from Brian?
Just different occasions. I can think of different occasions during my career where he would have maybe taken hold of things. The perception that he maybe would have been standing in a dressing room before a match or a half time reading the riot act is actually quite far from the truth. I remember one occasion where he did take hold of the situation down in Thurles. We were playing Limerick in a quarter final. That was one of very few occasions where he said he was going to speak and no one else. But other than that, it was very much over to the players. He would have tended to have done his talking on a Friday night before the championship matches in Owen Park, and he'd say a couple of words in the dressing room, and then it would be handed over to the kind of the players, the senior players in the warm-up room before you go out into a park. It's then those guys that drive it on. But there were look. He definitely had a great ability to say the right thing. I remember we drew with Galway in 2012, and there was that injury time free to level the match, and we came in, and there was a kind of this, the whole rigmarole that goes with All Ireland in terms of getting time off, the banquets, all the tickets, everything that goes with it, and there was a kind of a huge sense of anticlimax and disappointment, even though we drew the match, in the dressing room, and he called us into the warm-up area once everyone was showered and dressed and everything, and just pointed out that players play all their career and never get the opportunity to play in an Ireland final. You're living out your childhood dream, and you're now getting the opportunity to play the biggest game of the calendar year twice in 3 weeks. And I just remember the whole mood in the dressing room completely flipping. I remember walking out the door to get on the bus, and everyone was buzzing. Everyone couldn't wait to get into training on the Tuesday night. So things like that, I suppose, where just the psychology just switched completely. From feeling sorry for yourself to almost buzzing at the fact you're going to get another crack at All Ireland final in 3 weeks. So things like that, But look, he was, as I said to you, 24 years is a long time. He's had several different teams through his hands, and generations of players, if you like. And I think, a bit like Alex Ferguson, I'm sure the parallels will be drawn, but you can't see it. One true pony doesn't work. You kind of have to be able to evolve and adapt as well.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If you had to pick a greatest British footballer of all time, or even since Bobby Charlton, would you go along the Gareth Bale lines, or have another pick?
I think Kenny Dalglish should be pretty upset by that. If you want to say, is he the greatest since Dalglish? There's an argument for it. Won 3 European Cups with him. His link up with Rush, but Rush has got an argument there as well. Rush was I think we don't realise now how good Rush was.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right at 9:22, Cathal Mullaney is with us. Cathal, good morning to you. How are you?
Lads, how's it going?
What a weekend.
Oh yeah, it was great. The final yesterday was just, it's the dust is settling on it now. I suppose it probably is up there in terms of the quality of recent All-Ireland finals in the modern era. We were speculating whether it was up to the standard of Mayo Dublin in 16 and 17. I'm not sure.
Let's not lose the run of ourselves. We're all delighted for Kerry and Galway. They tried their best. But Mayo Dublin 2017 is the greatest game of all time.
I would agree.
Dublin, the best team of all time, at their absolute peak.
Yeah. But the quality of forward play yesterday.
Is 2017 the GPS?
Last minute,
yes.
Yeah. Lee Keegan scores a goal. Mayo are 2 points up with 6 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And they somehow managed to blow it.
Again.
What?
Again.
Mayo were in front? What?
Individual, there can't be too many finals where two individuals produce performances like Clifford and Walsh.
And is Walsh's performance the best on a losing team in an All-Ireland final, or have you figured that out yet? It's definitely up there. It has to be up there with any performance in an All-Ireland final, I would say.
David earlier on was saying, obviously Peter Canavan kicks 11 points. That was kind of a one-man team, Canavan, this Like at least McDade is chipping in.
But it felt as though Walsh was the one who was. Anthony said, he grabbed the game and he sort of said to all the Galway players, like, we're not going to be overawed by this. We're going to step up. We're going to have our big game on the biggest day. And he's taken a lot of stick over the last couple of years. I know listening to the football pod, they were constantly questioning him last season of, we know the talent is there, we know the genius is there.
Yeah, I mean, he was brutalised off the ball by Mayo in the Leinster final and was never, or in the Connacht final in Croke Park, and was never fit after that. Like, we do need to stop that happening. You shouldn't be allowed to ruin his season by pulling him to the ground off the ball. That should have been like, this is actually a key issue in Gaelic football where you are allowed to damage talent. All the other sports in the world have managed to fix this. No tackle from behind in football anymore.
Well, the same thing happened against Armagh.
Yeah,
constantly.
Yeah, and that's why it's like, do we want to see the best players playing the way he played yesterday, or do we want to allow somebody who's not as talented ruin the impact on the game? Oh, it's a man's sport. It's a man's sport.
Well, I think Kevin McStay has made that point in his article in the Irish Times in recent weeks as well about the off-the-ball stuff and Jay, that it has to be addressed. But look at it, I think every team is at it in some shape or form. But I think the game kind of went along the lines that possibly was expected, and that Kerry just had that little bit more quality off the bench. And I think the point was made in the Sunday game last night that their conditioning might be further down the line than Galway is, slightly. But you just wonder from Galway's point of view, are they going to get back to this stage again where they'll get an opportunity and a crack at a final like this? Because you have to remember the round robin stage is coming in next year, where it might be a little bit more difficult to negotiate.
Ray Silk said yesterday that Liam Silk is heading off for a year. So he won't be around, and he expected Conroy that to be his last game. So it's a different team next year, and not to say that they won't be able to replace those players, but very important.
There wasn't the depth to come on off the bench, and as you say, like Walsh and Comer are obviously going to be huge players for the next 2 or 3 years, but they're quickly heading for 30 as well.
And Liam Silk is close to being an All-Star this year.
Probably will be an All-Star.
So if he's not there, then it is difficult for them to get back to that level.
If Tom Sullivan doesn't get an All-Star, it brings to the fore again the debate: do we put way too much on the final? Like, can you go into? Did Thomas Sullivan do much wrong yesterday? What should he have done? Should he have nailed Shane Walsh in the first minute?
No, I mean,
I think Walsh was just unplayable yesterday at times.
And did they not move? I thought at one stage they had moved somebody over to him. But anyway.
Yeah, it seemed at times they had like one marking and one kind of trying to shadow him. For example, that point when he came in across from the Hogan stand and cut inside the little gap between the two players. But I'm not sure. Also, like, you put yourself in contention for an Ulster, I think, if you have a huge game in an All-Ireland final because you produce it on the biggest day.
I think that's the point. Yeah. I think that sometimes we don't put enough on the All-Ireland final.
But I think I absolutely get that. But it shouldn't. If you don't have your best game in the All-Ireland final and you're top 3 in the country for the rest of the championship, now I know, who did Kerry beat until they beat Dublin and Galway. But he was unbelievable that day, and the games before that, kicking points, stopping the player who's marking, kicking points.
Yeah, he's probably the top defender in the country up until yesterday. Yeah, definitely. But then, I don't know. The All Stars is going to be very interesting. But you would think, like McDade has to be in the conversation after yesterday. I would say he's probably nailed on 4 points in an All Ireland final. Walsh for Galway. Is Comer after yesterday? Probably not. Have you got to get Rian O'Neill in there?
Yeah.
Where does Rian O'Neill get in?
I think he was on the Sunday game team. I think he was in midfield, possibly. Yeah. I mean, you've got to get Clifford, possibly the Paddy Clifford. Does Sean O'Shea has to be in, so you're running out of positions.
The game team had Comer in. They had a full forward line of Walsh, Comer and Clifford.
Yeah, so no Paddy. Is Paddy Clifford there?
Paddy, Sean O'Shea and Kieran Kilkenny.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe Shawnee doesn't make it.
Oh, he's got to make it.
Well, didn't play well yesterday.
No,
wasn't really in the game. Obviously, kicked the score at the summer.
Yeah. Kerry aren't there if Sean O'Shea isn't there in the semi-final.
Yeah, that's his job. It's his job is kick these things.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a selector, but I'm looking forward to criticising the decision that the selectors make either way down the line. one quick point. We were talking about the free at the end and how it was very important. Gavin White's shoulder was completely legitimate. It was like the best shoulder of the summer. Yeah, I could see how if Kerry had lost, they'd be like, hang on a second, what, how did that happen? So maybe they do even themselves out over the course of the game. What else is going on?
Well, in golf yesterday, Darren Clarke completed a unique double. He clinched the Senior Open title at Glen Eagles. He finished on 10 under par. That was one shot better than Pádraig Harrington. Clarke birdied the 18th to hold off Harrington, who carded 6 back 9 birdies. And Clarke, of course, won the Open Championship in 2011. So he becomes just the 4th player to win the regular Open and the Senior Open title. Some Irish athletes in action at the World Athletics Championships overnight. Sarah Lavin just missing out on a place in the final of the 100 metres hurdles. The Limerick native finished 5th in her semi-final in Oregon in a time of 12.87 seconds, a performance she was very pleased with. Yesterday afternoon, Brendan Boyce produced a season's best performance to finish in 25th in the 35-kilometre walk final. The Donegal man clocked a time of 2 hours, 33 minutes and 31 seconds. Jonas Vingegaard says his childhood dream has come true after winning the Tour de France for the first time. He crossed the line safely at the end of the final processional stage in Paris. He had just less than 3 minutes ahead of defending champion Tadej Pogačar. England's women have received a boost ahead of Tuesday's Euro 2022 semi-final. Aston Villa goalkeeper Hannah Hampton has rejoined the squad. That's after recovering from coronavirus that ruled her out of the quarter-final win against Spain. And of course, in racing today, the Galway Racing Festival gets underway. The first of 7 races in Ballybrit goes to post at 5:10. And also in one line of darts news, Michael van Gerwen celebrating a 3rd World Match Play title. He beat Gerwin Price by 18 legs to 14 in last night's final. That took place in Blackpool.
430 grand Darren Clarke wins for his week's work. Not bad. Now that the live money has come in, it's kind of ruined your sense of like what good money in golf is, but that's not bad.
I think money has ruined golf, and the PGA Tour have a big part to play in that. Everything has become about money rather than prestige for the last decade. But yes, well done, Darren Clarke, and it's a pretty illustrious list. Tom Watson, Gary Player.
He was already on some pretty illustrious lists because of that. But one last thing, the Camogie at the weekend, somewhat overshadowed by the All-Ireland football final.
Yeah, to an extent, I guess. 2 very entertaining games. Cork and Waterford was the first game in Croke Park on Saturday, and Waterford started brilliantly. They were in their first semi-final since 1959. They hadn't been in a final since 45. They led by 5 points to no score at one stage, and the big news ahead of that game was Aisling Thompson, who was due to be suspended for 2 matches. The ban was overturned on Saturday morning, and she was listed among the subs. Came on when they were 5-0 down, and they won by 15 points to 10. So Aisling Thompson's introduction was a huge part of their comeback there, and they were 4 down at half time but finished really strongly. So they're into the final. They'll play Kilkenny. They beat Galway, the reigning champions, by 4 points, I think it was, in the end, 113-12 in the second match. Galway had chances. Kilkenny defending was really, really good. So Cork and Kilkenny in the final. That's taking place on the 7th of August. So the ladies football finals are next weekend, and then the Camogie finals the following weekend. So 2 more weekends of big action in Croke Park.
Right, good stuff. Were you cheering for Galway as a Sligo man? Is that
was, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I vaguely remember 2001, so that's the only time I've seen Sam. Well, I was alive in '98, but I don't remember it. But 2001, and I watched A Year Till Sunday, of course. That's the name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Watched that during the week, and heard the Saw Doctors on my way into work here yesterday morning. So I was like,
sign. That had to
be a sign, you know. But unfortunately,
seen all those signs through the years. Turns out it's never a sign.
Yeah. No. Okay, the linesman made the call on Spillane. I've done that one. Sorry. One of the great individual All-Ireland finalist plays of all time, says Pat Gallagher. This is true. Will Galway make it back next year? I don't think they make the semis next year, says Conor Flynn. Ger always says they have to make a deal, the European Tour and the Saudis. I'm reminded of Michael Caine and Batman about the Joker. Some men just want to watch the world burn. I mean, you know, that's potentially also true. This might be a much bigger geopolitical play that we don't understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Dahi says Liverpool added Carvalho, who looks promising, adding Thiago and Fabinho. That's a tasty midfield. Galway are in a far better place than Mayo, says Shane. Maybe they are.
We're all in the same place right now, I think you'll find.
Well, the power rankings will come out, and we'll see what that.
When will the power rankings come
I don't know.
out?
What kind of estate do you think Owen Sheehan?
Well, Owen Sheehan, I've heard rumours, for the good of the show, according to Owen, for the good of the show, is going to go to Kerry tonight.
All right.
And maybe broadcasting live from Kerry. Just for the good of the show. I think I get some really good content for the homecoming.
It's interesting. It's an interesting editorial decision he's just made there. Fair play. Come on out for the good of the show. Right, it is 9:33. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Oh, don't finish. There might be something else happening. There could be something. There's a surprise
keep talking,
coming.
Right. Producer needs to give a bit more than that. Just keep talking.
Okay, yeah. Tomorrow we have more reaction to, it turns out, from Owen in Kerry. We're now co-located.
Should we stamp this out right now and say no?
Come into the office.
You've got to be in the office
and not enjoy.
Has he taken today off, or has he just not turned up?
Oh, he's taken today off. In fairness, it was pre-planned. I think it was pre-planned as a defence mechanism in case they lost.
Yeah.
But then it turned into
it's a win-win.
I can't go in now. It's like it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
I presume he's just getting up around about now because he heard rumours of all the Kerry lads going to the Boar's Head, and him being the ultimate hanger-on wants to make sure he's there too for the photos for Insta.
But it's funny how we met Owen. He was in good form.
Others were writing you off. I always had you in the top 2 of the power rankings, even then you were doing nothing.
In fairness, he did have the number 1 from early on. He tried his best to yarrow it all away, but he couldn't make it work. So we'll have more post-match reaction from Croke Park in a few minutes' time. Obviously, James O'Donoghue was on the radio, and Paddy Andrews was with Tommy, and the football pod will drop tonight, live from the homecoming, I suppose. Well,
former players go to the homecoming.
Yeah,
I think so.
This is a dam burst now.
Right.
This is the birth of a new era.
Yeah,
they definitely were talking that way this morning. Like Jack O'Connor's words were, "You lads don't understand the pressure they were under."
And now that they're free of that pressure,
I'm not sure. Do they dominate? I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
I don't think
we're in a
spell.
dominate. I think we're in a spell of quite a few teams winning All Irelands, including the Dubs winning most of them.
But who is going to score the points that Dublin need?
Con O'Callaghan.
Yeah, well, Con's injury profile is now not great. It's a couple of years he hasn't been available for all the big games. So, and maybe he goes to the hurlers. Well, Brian Cody takes the gig.
Yeah.
Best hurler in the country.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting close season with all the managerial jobs in the football up for grabs, and you would think certain appointments in certain counties would certainly give those counties a jolt, and then obviously Galway getting so close as well is going to give a lot of counties belief, you would think.
Let's go back to the team hotel. Jack Savage, good morning to you. How are you?
Not too bad, no lads. How are you?
How's the head?
It's great, to be honest. It's waking up as an All-Ireland champion feels a bit different now today. The voice is a bit hoarse, but
I was going to say
that suit, Jack, is that the Sunday suit or is that the Monday suit?
We got 2 shirts, so we're fine out. We got the same suit with 2 shirts, so we'll be wearing it down to Tralee today for homecoming. So it's a great buzz here today. It's unbelievable to be part of it. We've 8 years in the making. It's a long time coming. So I think just everyone is just over the moon to finally get over the line and just get the medal in the back pocket. I think so. Yeah.
How was this season for you in retrospect? Like, was it enjoyable along the way? Was there extra pressure as each step got closer and closer?
I'm back in this year now for the first time in a couple of years, and it was just unbelievable to be part of a great group of players. The management team, everything kind of just fell into place this year. I think from Paddy Telly to Jack O'Connor, they kind of set in stone from the start, what was going to be expected of everyone, and everyone just rode in behind it. Even if you got 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it was, the whole team just kind of rode in together, and you could see that when we kind of put up against us yesterday. We kind of really dug deep, and we came out on top, thankfully, yesterday. So it was just some experience from start to finish, and unbelievable to get over the line in the end. That was the main thing. I think that was the goal at the start of the year.
One of the things that has been fairly consistent from everybody is talking about enjoying the grind, and that seems to be a bit of a mantra for you guys, that there are going to be moments of difficulty, and actually rather than feeling pressure in those moments, pressure is a privilege, is the old cliche.
To be honest, it was a bit too close for comfort out yesterday. I kind of expected us to kind of be start off better than we did, but in fairness to all the boys, everyone dug deep, and Galway, there's massive credit to Galway because they really put us to the sword yesterday, but thankfully we showed our class in the end, and we really just dug deep, and once we got ahead, I didn't think we'd lose it after that, but it was just getting ahead was the main thing, and just pushing on. I think from every fella that came on, every fella that kind of started yesterday really just dug deep, and credit has to go to Galway. They're a great team, and they'll be back again, no doubt. But just for ourselves, it was just unbelievable to get over the line, as I said. Yeah, definitely.
And on a personal level, when you're warming up and coming on, what's that like for you? How do you make sure that you're at the right pitch of the game, not too excited, not too over exuberant, but also you really want to make an impact? So how do you get that right?
I just think everyone from every sub could have come on, and you just don't know what way it's going to go. I just think you have to be ready for your chance. And look, I only came on for 2 or 3 minutes yesterday, but it's just being a part of it and coming on and just getting on the ball and just doing the simple things and just helping the team out, I suppose, was just the main thing. And I think the team spirit was echoed from the start of the year. Like, no matter if you're number 1, 26, 35, everyone was on the same level, and you could see that throughout the whole team. I think it's just coming on and just getting on the ball and doing your thing. I think the panel spirit was the main thing. The management kind of echoed from the start of the year. Just if you're number 1, 26, 35, everyone has the same role. We're all one team, and that was evident throughout the game, definitely.
But you said there you were out for a couple of years. The decision to come back in, was that easy? Was it straightforward, or were you thinking like, I'm not sure it's going to be worthwhile?
To be honest, I didn't think I'd get a chance after getting dropped in 2017, and I had a good club campaign last year. And it's just, obviously, when you're not there, looking in from the outside is totally different. Like, you'd miss it like 100%. But just to get the chance again to walk the Hogan steps yesterday, like, it's just something you'll never forget. 100%.
Yeah, and you obviously had to keep ready and you obviously wanted to get back. The club was a huge springboard for you, clearly, in giving you the confidence to go back in and then to be able to perform when you got there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, look, the elite level at inter-county is the pinnacle of your career, I suppose, and that's someone where everyone wants to go in the Kerry jersey. Like, not many people get to do it, so I'm so fortunate to have done it and to be a part of it, and just to win an Ireland medal is just to top it off. Like, you'll never forget these days. Like, when you look back into your career, like 100%. Yeah, it's great.
The halftime team talk, I think, is going to go down and as the stuff of legend. What was said in the dressing room at halftime?
I just, it was simple enough. Like, fellas knew they weren't performing to the level we could, like, but that has to go to the credit has to go to Galway in that respect as well, because like Shane Walsh there and a few more, they were unbelievable. Like, and I think we just came in, we reset at halftime, and we said we go back out here. Look, we have 35 minutes here. That's the season wrapped up after that. Like, you can't believe any stone unturned. And in fairness, look, we came out, we dug deep, and we get over the line, and it's just, we look back on that day yesterday for a long, long time, and it's just a privilege, to be honest.
Jack, we'll let you go. Congratulations again. Enjoy whatever's coming next. It's going to be a bit of madness, but
yeah, thanks very much, lads. Great to have you.
Well done.
Cheers.
Well deserved. Yeah. Right. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The Kerry celebrations, it turns out, they're going to go on Ibiza or Vegas. I'd go Ibiza. It's quicker. No jet lag.
Oh, yeah. More fun in Vegas. Bit further away from home. Won't run into too many more Kerry people.
There's camera phones everywhere.
Yeah.
There's always a Kerry jersey everywhere you go. Right. We're going to leave you with some of the best post-match reaction from Croke Park now. We'll see you tomorrow.
Kerry have won the All-Ireland football final. It's been a brilliant second half performance from them, and a real turnaround, Austin, because the first half they were poor.
They were poor, yeah, and look, they've done a lot of un-Kerry-like things in terms of the characteristics of what they were doing, in terms of pot shots, and they didn't look anyways fluent, and they looked quite leggy and disjointed there, but they've slowly built their way into the game, went in at the break, they were still in the game, obviously only a point in it, came out, looked like, Jack O'Connor, certainly he rang the changes at half-time, and that sort of sent out a signal of intent, and they brought greater energy and they got greater impact off their bench. And you can just see in terms of maybe the experience that Kerry had there in the end as opposed to Galway, they just looked like they started making mistakes, they started playing tight, started giving ball away, and there was probably a period in the game there in the second half that killed them, where they had 4 or 5 turnovers and Kerry transitioned back out and got scores, and that's really the story of the game, and they've had the experience to finish it out.
Yes, 2014 was the last time that Kerry won the All-Ireland football final. Before that it was 2009. So they've had 13 years where we almost had them just winning one All-Ireland title, but they've made it 2. I'm looking at David Clifford there, Mossy, and he's had his problems with injuries this year, and perhaps maybe not the complete superstar performance that maybe some people were hoping for. Shane Walsh perhaps maybe edging that little battle between those two, but he really has made a huge contribution to this team throughout the year and also today.
Yeah, he was sensational today, in fairness, Stephen. Like, he'd 8 scores in total. He'd 4 from play if you include the mark, like, in terms of but he was shown for the ball, and particularly in that first half when things weren't going right for them, his willingness to show, his willingness to get out in front, and his play makes him a natural leader. What he's like off the pitch or in the dressing room, I don't know, but in terms of how he carries himself on the pitch, and when things aren't going well for Kerry, he's one of the guys that they all look to, and they get him the ball and he generally does something positive with it, and he's been massive for them again, and you can see what it means to him in the celebrations. His brother was excellent in the second half as well.
That's brilliant, Mossy, and that's why we get the experts on, because they know an awful lot more than me. Let's go over to our 2 experts at Croke Park. Of course, James O'Donoghue and Paddy Andrews out there at Croke Park, where Kerry have been crowned All-Ireland champions for 2022. Paddy Andrews, I'll get your thoughts first, because I know you've got to nip off there soon enough, but it really was, I suppose, down to Galway's just tiring out in that last 20 minutes. They really looked dead on their feet.
Yeah, look, coming down.
And sorry, that's not to take away from Kerry's performance. Absolutely brilliant in the second half.
I think Kerry were the better team in the second half. They were more clinical. They started to get the grips of that Galway defence, and look, there was just more space, which we expected coming down the final 10-15 minutes. Galway put so much into that. They did get it back level. They went 10 minutes without scoring. Shane Walsh kicks a brilliant free, and then Killian McDade from midfield with his 4th point of the day from play brings it back to 16 points apiece with 5 minutes of normal time to go. And you're thinking, do Galway have one more kick in them? But they just ran out of legs, Stephen. To be fair to Kerry, you looked at David Clifford. Today was his day. He kicked 8 points. He was the shining light in that Kerry forward line. Sean O'Shea only scored 3 frees. Didn't really impact the game from play. Paddy Clifford, to be fair, came into the game a lot more in the second half. Very similar to his role against Dublin in that semi-final when the game started to get a bit fractured. He had a big impact and got 2 brilliant points for Kerry. But it was David Clifford, 8 points, 4 from play, a couple of marks as well. He led the line from the very first minute for Kerry. And look, over the course of the game, it wasn't their most clinical display, but they deserved it today. Over the 75, 76 minutes we played, and they've run out 4-point winners, and it's a first All-Ireland in 8 years for the Kingdom, and a first for David Clifford.
You mentioned the marks there, Paddy. How important were they today?
It was massive because it was such a clear, obvious tactic from Kerry. They felt that Galway would struggle under the high ball. We know that Kerry want to kick the ball into that full forward line as soon and as often as they can. It didn't work every time, but they did get a bit of joy out of it. Clifford gets 2 marks. It was in that first half when Kerry were really struggling to break down that set defence. Clifford was the man that was leading the way. He gets a couple of marks. Second half, they got a little bit more space, to be fair. Jack O'Connor made a big call at half-time. He took out Paul Geely for Killian Spillane, and Killian Spillane came on and got 2 points. He was a third of the side of that Galway full back line in the second half. And Kerry, as we expected, to be fair, just had that little bit more firepower, and that gets them over the line. For Galway, McDade with 4 points from midfield was spectacular. Shane Walsh, he tired in the final 10, but he hit 9 points for Galway. One of the most brilliant All-Ireland final displays. They look back and say, did we get enough out of Damien Comer? He didn't get a score today. I don't even think he had a shot at the post. Kerry marshalled him well, and that's ultimately the difference between the two sides.
Paddy, just give us your quick views on both goalkeepers. Of course, Shane Ryan for Kerry and Conor Gleeson for Galway at both ends. There was talk about their kick-outs, how they'd handle him. Shane Ryan, I know, has shown that he's got a great calmness about him now in tight situations.
Shane Ryan was excellent on his kick-outs. Galway were going after it. They were putting 7 and 8 bodies up, trying to force turnovers, but he got a lot of them away. It was excellent movement from the Kerry backs, but it was brilliant execution from Shane Ryan. For Conor Gleeson, he probably had a difficult day at the office. James is smiling at me here. He came out, got involved in a couple of plays, gave away a couple of frees. You felt that Galway, it was maybe a slight weakness for them. And look, in that battle, Shane Ryan and Kerry came out on top.
Well, Paddy, I know you don't want to be hanging around too much experiencing those Kerry celebrations this afternoon, so we'll let you go. And can I just say, James O'Donoghue, I'm so happy that you've won, just because I was a little bit worried we mightn't be able to get you on air if Kerry had got beaten this afternoon. We're just seeing the 2 players going up to collect the cup. Can you tell people what's going on?
Yeah, the fireworks are just going off. The goal bunting is coming down. It's unbelievable scenes here. Emotional scenes. It's been a long time coming for these Kerry players. They've been through some bad defeats. Some defeats they shouldn't have had. And just to lift the Sam Maguire now today, it just rights all the wrongs of the last couple of years. So couldn't be more proud of the players. In fairness, they've been unbelievable. So Sean O'Shea is just delivering his speech now after lifting Sam Maguire.
Yeah, and it wasn't just him going up to lift the cup either, was it?
It wasn't. Actually, who lifted it with him? I actually couldn't see.
Joe O'Connor went up with him.
Was it Joe O'Connor? Yeah. So it's
trying to get down on the pitch himself, lad. We're having to try to wrestle and try to keep him up here.
I was going to make it a 3-man lift there. I was going to go down. But Joe is he's with the Austin Stacks Club, so they won the county championship, so they have the captaincy. But obviously he wasn't playing, so Shawnee Shea was captain for most of the year, so they obviously lifted it as joint captains then. But Shawnee just an unbelievable leader on that team. But what a game! I mean, it was heart in your mouth stuff. At half-time, I was seriously worried. I thought Galway looked so ready to go on and win All-Ireland. But as the second half went on, Kerry just looked more assured. The nerves were gone. They seemed to razor in on the job at hand, and a couple of things went their way. Over on the Cusack side, the ref pulled, I think it was John Daly, for a very soft free. He said that while he had the ball, he was being tackled, and the ref said that he was actually fouling the ball, and Clifford put over an outstanding free to put Kerry 1 up. So it was those kind of small things that went against him. Conor Gleeson had a kick out from the 21, and he took it short. The Galway players weren't outside the D, so the ref hopped it in front of the goals, and Galway were chasing the game at this stage. Those two incidents just took the wind out of their sails, and you could tell Kerry just grew from it. And once they smelled blood, in fairness, they went on and chipped over a few points. They got into the positions to kick scores, but they worked it a bit closer and fisted them over the bar, and that showed great game intelligence at the time.
Yeah, because and I've got Mossy Quinn beside me here with Austin O'Malley as well, James. Mossy nodding very furiously here along, agreeing with what you're saying about the technical fouls at the referee, Mossy.
Yeah, it was something we talked about, Stephen, and I agree with James. It was very harsh. At that stage of an All-Ireland final, draw game, it's unusual to see a call like that from the ref. I think he said that the Galway centre-back, John Daly, was pulling the arm of Cillian Spillane, but Spillane went in with a fairly physical hit, a high enough hit. So in those instances, you usually do see a free. If a free was given to the Galway defender there, I don't think anyone would have blinked, or there wouldn't have been any complaints given, and the game would have flowed on. So it didn't decide the game, but it was a moment that kind of helped swing it into Kerry's favour. But in fairness, Clifford stepped up, nailed the free. They got on the next couple of possessions, and they had the players, as that game was coming into the dying stages, they had the guys who wanted the ball, who were looking for the ball, and were making the positive plays.
James, you mentioned at the half-time break about Kerry's handling and kicking errors. Did you see a marked improvement in that in the second half?
I did. I think Kerry just came out in the second half. They looked just more settled. They looked like they had the bit between their teeth. Now, Jack was very brave at half-time. We said that Galway were going in thinking, we can win this All-Ireland. So Kerry had some work to do in that half-time interval. And he was brave. He took off Paul Ganey, he took off David Moore. They would be big voices in that dressing room, and they would be big leaders. So for players to see those players come off at such an important time in such an important game can rattle a team at times. I was wondering how it was going to go. I was thinking, has he rushed these substitutions, or is it going to pay off? Because he was bringing on Cillian Spillane and Adrian Spillane, who usually come on with about 15 minutes to go and give the team a new impetus. So he was really rolling the dice very early on, but it worked for him because Cillian came on and got 2 great scores. Adrian worked so hard around there, getting turnovers, kicking ball in. So those 2 substitutions and that bravery shown by Jack definitely paid off, and that was the main thing at half-time, that main change. He went in, he shook up the team, shook up their nerves. He said, lads, get that out of your system. I'm making these changes. Let's go and win this now. And it definitely paid off for him.
Yeah, Austin, that's what you want from a manager. When the fat's in the fire, you need to be ruthless.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And I suppose, Jack's cunning and his own game intelligence, and he's been around, and he's, in terms of his, you could almost call it situational sense enough. The right call at the right moment, and the reason he's won his All-Irelands in the past is because he has done that, and it was a massive statement, and James is so right there, it almost was like a lightning rod, I suppose, to other lads to look who's next here going to be pulled if you don't shape up, and they kind of went back to what they're really good at in terms of treading ball to those link men. Paddy Clifford got into it a little bit more. Spillane himself, came in with 2, and slowly Kerry began to get momentum and oxygen and build into the game, and those are the key moments. And when you think of what Jack O'Connor has done in the past and the titles he's landed for Kerry, this is another one. And when you look back over the hour, it's fine margins, and those are the margins that are either cost you a game or you win a game. And it was a big call, but the right call in essence, I suppose, when you look at it in terms of the impact it had in the game.
Yeah, James, it's his 4th All-Ireland title now in charge of Kerry. Where does this one rank, do you think, amongst those 4 wins?
Well, I mean, personally for Jack, I'd say it would rank up there. I mean, he came in, he knew exactly what Kerry had to do to win. That's the thing I think that people realise in Kerry. He's watched this team for the last couple of years. Just here shouting. Shawnee.
Oh, it's great. It's great to hear this.
The place, the passion, unbelievable. He just lifted one last time. The noise here is still incredible. It's fantastic, my God. But no, with Jack, look, it's going to rank up there with one of the best, because he came in, he was cold and ruthless. He decided exactly what he wanted to do with the team. As we said before the game, he rang fellas, he said, you're going to be playing here, you're going to be playing there, and he went with the strongest team from the very start of the year. And when Jack wins a National League, he tends to follow it up with an All-Ireland, so there was an expectancy in Kerry from the start, and for him to deal with that so well and under the pressure to deliver, hats off to him. In fairness, he's done unbelievable. But can I just say, I'm a Kerry fan today. I honestly have so much respect for those Galway lads and their management. I think they were absolutely exceptional today. Like, some of their performers, Walsh was ridiculous. Some of the scores he got, honestly, all the Kerry people around me stood up and started clapping him. Some of the scores he got, right and left leg, under pressure, marking one of the best markers in the game at the moment, in Tom Sullivan. So I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Killian McDade stepped up. He got 4 points from play, and even after he kicked a wide, he kicked another from play, and then he kicked another wide, and he kicked another from play. The leadership it took for him to keep stepping up and going into those positions and trying to deliver for his team was unbelievable. I just thought the leadership from McDade and Walsh was exceptional. And if you add in Silk, who marked Shawnee Shea, probably one of the hardest marking jobs at the moment as well, Silk was absolutely fantastic. And Malloy, usually a wing back covering, who was used today as a cornerback, marked Paul Ganey in the first half. Paul was withdrawn at half time, and he marked Killian Spillane second half and did a fine job. So I must say, hats off to those Galway lads. They really delivered today. They're just unlucky to come up against such an excellent Kerry side today.
Yeah, and Damien Comer perhaps didn't get the scores that he would have wanted today, but crucially, and especially towards the end there, he showed the qualities of one of the great players, and that he was making turnovers, he was getting in there, making a nuisance of himself. It hasn't worked out for them in the end, but again, your forwards aren't necessarily just going to get you scores. You see lads like Damien Comer leading by example, and leaving his heart and soul out in the field there.
Yeah, well, Comer is more than just a forward who wants to score his own scores. He's constantly tackling, working hard, giving direction to his other players. He's winning kickouts, he's winning his own kickouts, and he's making big turnovers. He made one unbelievable turnover back in his own defence, and just as Galway was starting to turn the tide, he won a kickout off Shane Ryan. But just to follow on from that, Kerry were level with Galway in the 64th minute, and Galway had a full press on. They had 4 up in the full forward line stopping the short kick out. They had 4.5 forward line stopping the kind of jab kick out, and they had 4 behind them to stop the very long kick out. And Shane Walsh somehow found a kick out to Gavin White. David and Body Clifford here just lifted the cup together to get in a huge cheer. But for Shane Ryan to get that kick out off, and Kerry actually got a score from it, it's a moment in the game that people probably wouldn't realise the importance of. But he put down the ball with 80,000 people looking at him going, if he messes up this kick out, Galway could win this. And he pinged it out to the sideline straight into Gavin White's mouth for a Kerry score. So hats off to Shane Ryan there. When a big play was needed, he came up with it.
100%. Before we move off Galway, I just want to ask you quickly, first of all, just Shane Walsh, that free from the hands towards the end, was that the right call? Should he maybe gone from the ground, or was it from the hands the right call?
The way he was playing, you can't question his decision, because he was kicking everything. But at the time, there was about 4.5 minutes left and they were 2 down. So at the time, I did say to Paddy here, I was like, this is probably the wrong decision. They should go short, work an easier chance, get the point, and then press the kick out again and maybe win it back. But he took the shot from under the Cusack, 45 yards out at an angle, probably 55 yards really, with the way the angle was, and he just tailed it wide. And when that happens, it's a chance miss, and it just deflates your team a little bit. And I know that Galway weren't making a lot of chances at the time, so Shane had to take that shot on probably. But if he was to go back, I wonder would he have taken a short and tried to work an easier chance. But that said, Shane Walsh had such an unbelievable game, and the reason he had such a great game was his decision making was on point along with his kicking, so you can't criticise him for doing it.
There's a few little chiselers going up there to get a look at the cup with their with a few of the Kerry players. James, it looks like the next generation are just getting a sample of what it's like to go up and collect Sam. I'm not sure if they'll remember it in 15 years time, but I suppose you got to get them started early in Kerry, don't you? But I'm just looking, we've seen Pat Spillane on the Sunday game. Of course, this is his last year before he bows out, and Pat's in tears, and I'm just, are you a bit emotional yourself, James, at the moment?
I am, to be fair. I mean, these fellas, I've been playing with these lads for the last 10 years. I mean, I felt the heartbreak over the last couple of years where we haven't gotten over the line, and there's been such a turnaround of players since we won the All-Ireland last. So these fellas needed this. They needed to kind of validate your Kerry career to win All-Ireland. And the thing is that it's there for them now. The confidence that they can take from this, the David Cliffords, the Paddy Cliffords, there's actually something there now where they can go on and hopefully be in contention for a long time yet, a couple of years, really give it a rattle to kind of set a dynasty. I mean, that's a lot easier said than done. But coming off the back of such starvation, thanks to Dub's success, I mean, Kerry really are trying to push this team forward for success. But I mean, look, it's just a great day for everyone, for the supporters. Everyone is staying back now to celebrate with the team, and it's just a great atmosphere. The only thing I can see is the older fellas have their kids out as well. I hate seeing the older fellas with the kids out because it's like a kind of a retirement strategy. It's like if I bring the kids out onto the field one last time, I might pack it in. So I can see Paul Gainey there with his young lad, and David Bourne as well. So hopefully there's another year in those lads yet.
Yeah, well, they're the two, as well as I was trying to pick out all the players who are over 30. Stephen O'Brien as well. But as you were saying, like the rest of the players there, we're looking at, Graham O'Sullivan 24, Jason Foley 24, O'Sullivan 25, O'Bugleek is 25. A lot of players there around the right age. Gavin White as well, Dermot O'Connor 23, Shawnee O'Shea 24. As you were saying, like there really is the potential for this Kerry team to go on a bit of a run.
There is, and Paddy always says it, getting the first one over the line is so important in terms of All-Ireland success, because it gives you the confidence. Kerry have won this going down the narrow side of the game against Dublin and against Galway. They were level and behind in both games, and they just pulled it out of the fire. So the belief that will give a 24-year-old when you haven't even come near your best yet. I mean, you're probably not hitting your best until you're 28, 29. So these fellas have another 3 or 4 years development, and they've had 3 or 4 years of kind of disappointments which will fuel the fire for them. I can't stress how much a couple of narrow defeats fuels the fire for victory. It just really...
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.